Alright. Can you hear okay? Trying to see how I can make my box bigger. Just kind of waiting right now. Let's see. Give me just a second. I'm trying to figure out how to make this box bigger. How do I do it? Does anybody know how to do the box bigger? Oh no, that didn't work. Good morning. Do you know how I can make this box bigger? Turn this fan off so y'all can hear better. Trying to figure out TikTok, which I guess if I have to, me neither. Well, that don't even, I guess y'all could see it better. Let's see. What does it do if I do like that? Is it sideways for y'all when I do it like that? There we go. Is it sideways for y'all? I don't know if it turns it around on it is. Okay. Dang. Alright. I don't know why it started doing this. I used to be able to have a have the camera longer or bigger. But you know what I mean. Some kind of TikTok update. You know what? Let me try this. I'm gonna set y'all down for a second, alright? Let's see if I can pull it up on my computer. That might make it better. Then I can make it bigger. And then I could just use the phone for sound. Because then I could put the phone closer so y'all could hear. Alright. Gotta move this stuff out the way. Y'all can look at my little nicky knack over there. I like that. Let's see. There we go. Alright. You know what? I could email myself the link. Alright, y'all. Let me get into my email. Choo choo. That's right. So we will get this going one way or another. I was supposed to actually have court today. And then it got moved. So again, everything works out perfectly for me to be able to do this. I don't know how or why it does it, but it does every time. Let's see. Looking for my email. No, I don't want to write myself an email. It hasn't started yet, so y'all just give me a minute. And Myrtle Beach Records. Did I not send it? Oh, I think I sent it to the wrong email. I think I sent it to my old boss. Which they probably don't even have that email anymore. Because we sold the company. That's probably where it went. That's why I didn't get it. Yeah, that would be cool if I get on here. Because then y'all could see it a lot better. And then I could have the phone for y'all to hear it a lot better. And then I could have the phone set up to where if I needed to walk off for a second. Hello, hello, come on in, welcome in. Trying to get set up. They haven't started yet on court. So I'm just trying to figure out a couple things real quick. Oh, and I was able to go ahead and make you a mod too. I did figure that out. I don't know how to make the screen bigger. I don't know why it has all these boxes on there. I guess TikTok trying to encourage having a bunch of people on panel. Let's see. All right, share. Copy the link. Let's try this way. Gmail. Compose. Just had something sent. Good morning, good morning. Are we excited? We could take a vote. I sent the email already so I can pull it up. There we go. I don't know why it took so long to... That's what I'm talking about. Alright. Now we got it on the big screen. Alright, cool. So that means I can put y'all here. Alright, y'all. I see them in there. Alright, let me get it going on the other phone so that way we can hear. Oh, come on now. Alright, here we go. I got the sound coming.
Add additional grounds for divorce if the abuse is against a spouse or minor child within
Alright,
the
can y'all
12-month
hear?
period prior to the filing of an action or during the pendency of an action already filed. The bill would also, regarding orders of protection, would amend the orders of protection statute to add harassment or stalking or coercive control. And lastly, regarding child custody and the best interest of the child, the bill would add stalking on harassment or the effect of stalking on or harassment between the parents or the parent and another individual or between the parent and the child as factors to be considered by the court in determining the best interest of the child and determining child custody.
Thank you. We have the author of the 702 to bill, Senator Goldfinch, if you would like to make a statement regarding this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I will be brief because I know we've got some folks in the audience that want to speak to this issue and are certainly passionate about this issue for good reason. Mr. Chairman, members, this is a bill that has been a long time coming. As you know, I worked on this bill with Senator Shealy many years ago, introduced this bill a couple times. I've introduced this bill a couple times, and I'd like to briefly tell you why. A few years ago, we had a situation in our community, which will be spoken about today, I hope, where a young woman was, involved, allegedly involved, certainly looks like she was involved in what we now call coercive control. She ultimately, it looks like, took her life because of this situation. And it was horrifying for our community for many reasons. And I don't want to get too much into that because I know they will. But it brought real light and attention to the issue for me. And quite frankly, Mr. Chairman and members, I was embarrassed for myself that I didn't understand the precursor to domestic violence. I've never had it in my family, thank God. Never been involved in it, thank God. And so sometimes we feel isolated or just not, it hasn't touched my life until that point. And so I watched it occur in our community and tear our community apart. And I was embarrassed that I didn't understand what coercive control was and what it could do to a family and a community like ours. And so that was sort of the impetus for getting this process started. We looked at a number of other states to try to model it, and I've got the states here that have done this, by the way. I wrote them down this morning. And so far, states that have passed coercive control laws: California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Washington, Arkansas, Michigan, Vermont, Nevada, Mississippi, and there's about 20 others that are working on it right now. It is not as well known as domestic violence, but I want you to know that it is the precursor to domestic violence. South Carolina continually ranks somewhere between 3rd and 6th in the worst domestic violence states in the nation. We also continually rank worst in deaths as a result of domestic violence in the nation. And so my belief, and I believe the belief of many, many people in the audience today, is that we begin to get proactive about domestic violence rather than reactive. Our state's policies have always been to be reactive. The problem with that is oftentimes the reactive nature of dealing with domestic violence means somebody is going to be severely injured or killed before the state takes action. So the idea here is identify it early, do something about it, cut it off at its knees before it turns into severe injury or death, which, Mr. Chairman, I know you in your law enforcement career has seen this horrendous stuff time and time again. Those are some of the most dangerous calls I know that police officers make. So I'm sure you've had to deal with those personally, and those are heartbreaking situations. So, as staff has already told you, we defined what a household member means. We redefined what a household member means already in code, and just added that those are persons who presently in or have formerly been in a dating relationship. I want you to know, so there's been some concern. Excuse me, I'm talking a lot, Mr. Chairman, nowadays, so my voice is going in and out. But there's been some concerns, and rightfully so, from folks out there that don't want to criminalize thought, and I don't want to criminalize thought either. Like, I don't want to get into that. So, we were very careful about the way that we drafted this. And coercive control means and I'd like to just read you this quick piece here. It means a pattern of behavior. It's not a one-time incident. It is a pattern of behavior that restricts a person's free will and personal liberty. They actually made a movie about this recently, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but I watched it with my wife, and it was horrifying. The actual the defendant in this case, it was based on a true story. The defendant in this case locked his significant other in a closet or a room and demanded that she do horrifying things to herself as punishment before she could be let out of the room. Now, did he lay his hands on her? No. Did he cause her bruises and her scratches and her cuts and her wounds? No, he didn't. And would that have easily been able to be charged as domestic violence? The answer to that is also no. And so there are certainly loopholes in the law that this tries to address. And it's a pattern of behavior that restricts a person's free will and personal liberty. We did this a little differently than the last time the bill was written. We added this into the family court section as well. So for a divorce, you can also use, not typically a divorce, you've got a few grounds for divorce. Those of you who practice in that arena, that's, adultery, desertion, physical cruelty, and habitual drunkenness. We added domestic violence as defined by the new code, which we defined here, to include coercive control. So we added it to a cause for divorce. And Mr. Chairman, I think that's all the technical details I want to get into, because I know that we have family of Mica here, among others, that have experienced this, and I want them to have more time than I do. And Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions, I have another bill I got to run to right now. If there are any questions, I'll take them, and then I apologize, but I do have to leave for another committee.
That's fine, Senator Goldfinch. Is there any questions for Senator Goldfinch?
I'd like to thank the committee. And one more thing, Mr. Chairman, I'm not wed to any language. I don't take, any pride and ownership of the language. Y'all know what you're doing. Y'all are experienced in these matters. And so you're not going to hurt my feelings, and nobody in the audience is going to hurt my feelings. If there's a better way to do this, if there's an amendment that is forthcoming that can make this better, that can improve the lives of South Carolinians, I'm all about it. So let me know how you come out with it. I appreciate your work on it. It's very important work, as all of you know. I know all of you are committed to this kind of thing. So thank you so much for your work on it. I'm honored to work with you on it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And thank you to the audience for coming too.
So we got quite a few people that want to testify. I am limited on time. I want to hear all y'all stories and make sure y'all are able to express how important or what your stance is regarding this legislation. So please understand that we are limited on time, but I'm going to go with Jennifer Wells, if she would like to come up. Thank you, ma'am. If you would state your name and if you're with the organization too, on who you're representing.
There we go. Thank you very much for hearing me this morning. My name is Jennifer Wells. I am a 21-year seasoned prosecutor, both in state and federal court in North and South Carolina. I left state practice several years ago and am now the vice president of SCACTL, which is the South Carolina Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. And I'm here in my capacity as the vice president of that organization to talk to you about S702 this morning. The first thing I want to say is that I regularly in my practice represent victims of crime. I do that as both pro bono and low bono, as well as paid advocacy. I work closely with SCAD-BASA, SC-VAN, and our agencies in the upstate, Project Rest in Spartanburg, and in our victim advocacy associations across the upstate and representing victims of both domestic violence and human trafficking. And I want to thank both Senator Goldfinch and the people who have been victimized by individuals who have committed coercive control in bringing this important bill before this committee. I am not here to speak in opposition of this bill in any way, shape, or form. What I am here to do is to suggest that this bill is very broad, encompasses broad behavior, and it is modeled very closely and reads almost word for word from the Hawaii statute. Hawaii is the only state that has criminalized coercive control. Many other states have included coercive control as part of their domestic or their family law provisions of their statutes, but Hawaii has criminalized, and that bill, that legislation sunsets this year. So I would encourage this committee to encourage some research into what has succeeded in Hawaii, what has not worked in Hawaii, so that we can look to build on their successes and not create additional issues here. So what I would say is this. Number one, we do have a concern with including the coercive control language as a precursor directly for domestic violence, third offense. As all of us know, the domestic violence statute allows, now that it's been recrafted, and y'all don't have to know how long I've been practicing law. All you have to do is look at my hair, and you've got an idea of, I will tell you, it's been 25 years, most of which of those I ran domestic violence units in this state or as part of a federal state working group. And the way the statute is written after the legislature amended it, and I believe it was 2015, is that these things build upon each other. And so this could be a precursor to domestic violence high and aggravated. It could be a precursor to domestic violence first offense, which we don't necessarily have a problem with. But what I would suggest is I think it's probably better placed under 2770D, which is what instructs our law enforcement officers on what they must, what the legislature has told them they must look for when they're making a primary aggressor analysis as to who is going to jail when law enforcement responds to a scene. I will tell you, the need for law enforcement training on the existing statutes that we have on stalking, on harassment, on revenge porn, on cyber stalking, on how to handle orders of protection and restraining orders, and the need for training specifically for our magistrates on how to handle those things. Oftentimes our magistrates are still reading things into the statute that no longer exist. The idea that this happens in a 90-day period, that is not part of our legislation anymore, but magistrates continue to read that in. So I want to impress upon this committee, the subcommittee, the importance of training and for these agencies so that they understand the statutes that we have, how they can be used effectively, and how they can be used appropriately to address the very issues that this statute is trying to and important to address. So I do think that using that language and placing it into 162770D under the law enforcement shall address these issues when determining who is the primary aggressor. I think that is really a useful place to put that language instead of it being part of the base offense level of domestic violence, third degree. Truly, my concern with this bill is the opportunity for people who are already coercive, people who are already in it, or what we often commonly call a narcissist or things like that, using this bill to further victimize survivors. Because some of the behaviors that are documented in here that are absolutely part of coercive control are also absolutely part of behaviors that survivors participate in when they're trying to escape these types of relationships. They are tracking their spouses or their intimate partners. They need to know where they are because they need to know if they're safe. They need to know what their financial aspects are or attempt to control those because they're trying to get money so that they can leave. And if those things are allowed to be turned on their head and then weaponized against survivors, which already happens in our domestic violence courts, I've seen it on both sides, both as a defense attorney and a prosecutor. I have real concerns about that. So what I'm asking, I am a big proponent of evidence-based investigation, evidence-based legislation, and evidence-based prosecution. And I always have been. Anyone who's worked with me as a prosecutor, and when I ran Operation Homefront out of the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Seventh Circuit Solicitor's Office, knows that is incredibly important to us as prosecutors and defense attorneys. So what I would suggest is we really need to be precise here, because precision aids and guides law enforcement. Not all of our law enforcement officers were lucky enough, and I'm just going to pat myself on the back, frankly. I answered every phone call law enforcement ever made to me as a domestic violence prosecutor to help guide these guys on charging domestic violence third offense or whatever it was that they were struggling with. I answered phone calls in the middle of the night. And my husband would absolutely attest to that. But not everyone is that lucky. Not every law enforcement officer has a prosecutor that is on call to them 24 hours a day to help understand what a statute means. The statute encompasses a lot of behaviors and a lot of things that are, I think, easy for maybe a family court judge to discern in a court of equity, but in a court where our burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt, we need to really have precision. And that's what I would like to see, is a little more precision in this bill as to some of the language around what this is and how law enforcement is to treat it, so that we don't end up inadvertently victimizing the people that this is meant to protect. I just want to briefly say, I do have some concerns with the definition of household member and the definition of dating violence. I do just think that those need some tweaking. I think now, again, as the courts have imported things from prior versions of our domestic violence statute, household member is commonly interpreted now to mean anyone. When we talk about people who have cohabitated or previously cohabitated, almost invariably law enforcement considers that to be people who have lived together in an intimate partner relationship. I think in opening that up to just saying, to the way that it's drafted in here, I think law enforcement, based on my experience having trained across the state, law enforcement and prosecutors and other folks on how to prosecute and investigate domestic violence, I think we're going to have a lot of phone calls and a lot of concerns and a lot of charging of people who are roommates and roommates only, not under what we consider what I call IPV or intimate partner violence. And I think the subcommittee has to decide if they want this to be opened wide for those folks, or if we do intend for this to be just focused on intimate partner violence between individuals who are in dating relationships, which I want to say is absolutely necessary. We have got to include dating relationships in this. I think we are the only state in the country that doesn't talk about dating violence. And having prosecuted those cases, it is just incredibly important that we include that it needs to be included. And I know what we're doing there. I can see what we're trying to accomplish in that definition of dating violence, but I do think the definition needs to be more precise for a number of reasons that I'm probably running out of time to talk about.
Thank you, Ms. Wells.
But thank you very much.
No, absolutely. Is there any questions from the committee for Ms. Wells?
Just have one, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Richland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Wells. Thank you so much for your expertise. I used to be a domestic violence prosecutor, but it's been over 25 years, and so a lot of this is bringing back memories on and how far our statutes have come, but of course how much further it needs to go. I'm trying to look for where you're talking about with the household member, because I do see where it says dating relationship does not include casual relationships or ordinary fraternization between two individuals, and so where do you think that the law enforcement could feel like just roommates are covered?
So when we're looking at the definitional section under 162510, as we
Okay, I see that's a minor persons
so
who are
that's section
cohabitating,
persons who are
cohabitating.
so what, and I understand what we're trying to do here is, as y'all know, I know that we have practicing attorneys on here. Doe versus State, which is a Supreme Court case that came out, and I'm not going to be able to quote the year, but it came out to try. It was what happened in Doe was a Lexington case, and it was a same-sex couple who were one of the parties was trying to avail themselves of the domestic violence order of protection process in Lexington. They were denied an order of protection because the family court judge determined that they were not a household member because they were in the same-sex relationship. So Doe, basically, when you look at household member now, and in fact, there's a great chart that the prosecution commission creates, and it kind of puts an asterisk by household member and says you can't read this statute anymore. You can't read, 162510 to say that household member excludes same-sex couples, and we now have to interpret that it includes same-sex couples. So I think that's what we're trying to do here is include same-sex couples in that. But when you look under 162510 D, it's 3D under household member, spouse, a former spouse, persons who have a child in common, and then the strikeouts here we're starting to redline. Or, which is crossed out, a male and female, and it's crossed out, and it now reads persons who are cohabitating or formerly have cohabitated, or persons who are presently in or have formerly been in a dating relationship. So I think without more precision with that language there, that again, I think it's important to include maybe this is not speaking. I'm maybe speaking out of school a little bit, but I do think it's important to include individuals who are in same-sex relationships. But when we just leave the definition as people who have cohabitated or previously cohabitated without saying that they also had to be in an intimate partner relationship, then what does cohabitated and previously cohabitated mean under this version of the statute? And I think that means anybody. I just feel like that's a place we just need to tweak.
So a fix could be to just add intimate partner relationship.
I think if we did, or exactly.
Oh, hold on.
Officer or prosecutor saying, well, it says we can charge these people live together. And listen, this is something we dealt with day in and day out when I was running the domestic violence unit in Spartanburg, was law enforcement saying, well, calling and saying, well, they living together and they're male and female, but they swear they're not having sex. And what do we do? Is this DV or is it not? And I think that it's just a great.
I didn't even know I had those stickers. What is going on?
And this going up to this Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court to determine exactly what that means under this new version of the statute.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Wells, I would love to keep you here.
Sure, I know you've got tons of people. Yes, sir. I am being pulled in multiple places. I appreciate you letting me speak so I can run over to the house. But I want to let y'all know I am available. I am here. I am here all day today and all day tomorrow. So if there's anything that I can do, or with my friends from SCB.702 or any of our victim agencies here, we all work incredibly well together. We are not opposed to this bill. We are very much in favor of having this be a successful bill that will be well utilized by law enforcement and prosecutors and understandable by all those folks and judges and defense attorneys as well.
Right.
So,
thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Abigail Francis. If you would, to state your name, if you're representing an organization, or reference your statement.
Hi.
I'm assuming this is Anna Francis?
Anastasia. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, State Representative Committees, and fellow South Carolinians. Move it closer. Sorry. My name is Abigail Francis, and this is Anastasia Francis, and we are representing the Francis family on behalf of our sister, Mica Francis, whom some of you may know as Mica Miller. We're in favor of the Coercive Control Bill S.702 and are asking the committee to rename this bill Mica's Law. Mica was a fierce woman of God, a sister, a daughter, an aunt, and much more. On April 27th of 2024, Mica was found deceased 2 days after she had served her alleged abuser with divorce papers. Mica did what we are all told to do in abusive situations, but was failed time after time by the Myrtle Beach Police Department, the Horry County Police Department, and finally the Robeson County Police Department in her death. Between the years of 2022 and 2024, Mica called the police on 7 different occasions seeking help against her alleged abuser, but there was nothing for them to do since there are no laws to guide them against coercive control. Mica wrote a list of abuse she endured, including an affidavit telling us just a portion of the heinous crimes that were committed against her. In this affidavit, Mica said that she was forced to take part in sexual acts against her will, meaning she was trafficked. Mica was forced to take steroid injections, causing medical and vocal cord issues. Mica's identity was stolen. Mica's character was put in question with false police reports, which the police on scene told her that it was an abuse of law enforcement. Mica's personal belongings were either stolen, thrown away, damaged, or moved to other locations. But since she was still married, all of these items were listed under marital assets, so there was nothing she or law enforcement could do in this situation. Much more happened to Mica for many years, yet her alleged abuser has not been charged for said crimes. According to the South Carolina Domestic Violence Advisory Committee, South Carolina is the nation's 6th worst state in regards to domestic violence homicide rates. The original coercive control bill was introduced in 2019 by Senator Toole during the 123rd session. It was introduced again in 2021 by Senator Shealy in the 124th session, and now it's being introduced in the 126th session by Senator Goldfinch and Senator Grooms. The lack of accountability over the years allowing this bill to lapse was detrimental and unforgivable, as this could have saved our sister's life. A petition started nationwide the moment Mica died, seeking justice and stricter laws. Our family, including 42,632 others, implore you to give this bill a subcommittee along with chargeable offenses. We implore you to take a stand and help save the lives of those who are in need at this very moment. This bill has the ability to save an incalculable amount of individuals. As Christians, God requires us in Micah chapter 6, verse 8, to act justly, to love mercifully, and to walk humbly with him. And that is what we will continue to do. Thank you for your time. God bless, and justice for Mica.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Thank y'all so much. We appreciate y'all's story and y'all's courage and everything, your continued battle for this. And don't waver. Keep fighting.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have Nikki Parker. Nope. I'm sorry. Nope. I just want to make sure I didn't want to speak, correct? No. Okay, thank you. Next up is Regina Ward? Okay.
My handwriting.
That's okay. That's all right. Usually see that with the men, not the women. If you would, just state your name, if you're with an organization or anything, and just tell us your story.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Regina Ward. I'm an attorney here in South Carolina. I've been practicing law for about 21 years, and primarily in the areas of criminal law as well as family court. A little bit more in family court, where I've had the personal experience of clients of mine coming in and wanting divorces and talking about basically coercive control behaviors that they were under the thumb of. Obviously, in South Carolina, as it was stated before, is that South Carolina doesn't recognize coercive control as a form of abuse. So I'm here actually a little bit in two places. One, as a practitioner, I am a staunch advocate for this bill. However, in reviewing it as an attorney, I do see some language that probably needs to be tweaked. Now, I didn't make an outline of all of that. I do have some of it, but what I want this committee, I'm concerned that we're at the end of this legislative session. It's going to take a lot to get this bill through. And so my concern is that it won't make it this time. And we've waited far too long. And the Francis family is correct. My belief is that this had passed 4 years ago, Mica Francis would be alive and be here today. But I also, in addition to being a practitioner, I'm also a survivor of coercive control myself. And so I know what that feels like. I know what that looks like. I know how difficult it is to explain it in a manner that someone actually gets how abusive this is. It puts an indelible mark on the psyche of a person. And it's meant to keep them down and oppress them for control purposes. And when someone in that situation tries to explain what has happened to them, before I knew the words coercive control, I called it invisible stuff. I was subjected to invisible things. Obviously, some things that were very visible, but it's marks that don't, it's abuse that does not leave marks on the skin. We're archaic in our thinking. Psychological abuse, that's been around for centuries, used in warfare even. Why? Because it's effective. And we need to do something about it. South Carolina needs to stand up for victims. And other people say, oh, it's men and women. Yes, it is, but let's tell the truth here. It's primarily women. And we need to take care of our women and give them a hand up and out of the situation. Additionally, our police officers, I've heard constantly, well, the police didn't do anything. Well, the police don't have a law to look to. That's what they do. They look for it and they say, does this match up? Are these facts that are in front of me facts that match code, match a law? And if it's not there, then they don't have anything to look to. You got to give them the tool to help the victim out of the situation. I do want to say this as well. If nothing else happens this term, please do this one thing. I do see in the bill that there's a change in the definition of abuse, of domestic abuse. It's including this psychological form of abuse. That is critically important. That is the best beginning that I can think of for this law to actually make it through, and not only make it through, but actually be effective, actually do something. There needs to be funding set aside somehow, some way. I don't know if it's through fines or whatever it is, but money needs to be taken either through the criminal process or something, or just in the budget, to give the resources, to get the training for the police officers, the training for our judges, because whenever you try to explain what's happening to you, it doesn't seem like a crime, but it's the totality of the circumstances that person is living in that it makes it a crime. They chip away at the very core soul of a person, until they're left with just nothing. They feel worthless, and they've been convinced that they shouldn't even be alive most times. It's despicable, and it's despicable that this has come before the legislature many times and has not made it through. Now, I agree that the bill needs some work. I agree with Ms. Wells on that too, Attorney Wells on that too. But I think what is in great standing right now is the definition, because when you add the definition, we're not just talking about a criminal act here. We're talking about it's being applied across the board. Family court, custody disputes, things like that. Also in criminal law as well. So it can go across with that definition. And then with that definition by itself is going to get everyone to start thinking and realizing what this is. it takes a long time. It takes a lot to understand it, and it takes a lot to understand the gravity of it. So I urge you to please, if nothing else happens here, to at least get that definition out there. It's a great start. And I know that you have the power and the authority to rewrite and to add and do what is necessary to tighten that bill up. Senator Goldfinch, he mentioned, he said, you can do that. He doesn't have any ownership of that. This is for the people. And thank God he came up and did this, where no one else would be. And I'm quite upset that I've not seen more names attached to it, because I know that gives it momentum.
Thank you, Ms. Ward.
Do I know you just mean?
Were you done? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I do want to say, did you have a question for me?
No, ma'am. I wasn't sure if you were done or not.
Thank you. I do.
Senator from Richland has a question for you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that Ms. Ward, it would be helpful if you could just write down some of your suggestions in writing. I do think that everyone agrees that we need to move forward, but it does need some work. I've got, to your point, I've got a similar bill that I try to take a portion of this, because sometimes the bills don't get through because people have an issue with this one point or this one point. But if we have something in writing, we could probably work a little bit more efficiently and then make sure that we hear from everybody else who wants to speak.
I would love to do that. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is we're not creating anything here. This is not anything novel or new. It's all the way back in 2010. France, another country, is the first country to adopt psychological abuse and criminalize it. So it's been around a long time in other countries and other states. And I think that Scotland has one of the best criminal type of statutes with regard to coercive control. I just want to make sure I said that correctly. I believe it is Scotland. Yes, it's Scotland. So there's other places to look for help too, and I would be honored to send some suggestions in. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, Ms. Ward.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next up we have Sarah Barber.
Exactly, Justice for Mica.
Sorry.
It's okay.
If you would just state your name and what organization you're with.
My name is Sarah Barber. I'm with the South Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. We really appreciate this opportunity to testify in support of Senate Bill 702. We support the bill because it expands the legal recognition of the real danger caused by the non-physical forms of abuse in intimate partner relationships. Current South Carolina criminal and family law statutes narrowly define domestic abuse or domestic violence as physical cruelty, physical abuse, or sexual abuse. This incident-based approach, focused only on physical violence, fails survivors of intimate partner violence who often experience a wide range of abusive behaviors, including stalking, harassment, and coercive control, which is a strategic pattern of emotional, financial, and psychological abuse used to isolate and dominate a partner. Taking an integrated systemic approach to expanding our definitions of domestic abuse in the civil and criminal legal context would encourage survivors to access earlier interventions, expand access to legal protections, and apply an evidence-based approach that more accurately accounts for what victims are actually experiencing. Our support of Senate Bill 702 is inspired by the memory of 2 South Carolina survivors and the many others who have experienced significant legal hurdles in their attempts to get help. There's a Miss Taylor McFadden Robinson in Florence County who was killed by her husband days after being bounced between magistrate and family court in her unsuccessful attempt to obtain either a restraining order or a civil protective order against her husband for escalating stalking and harassment. And Ms. Mica Miller, who we've heard from her family today. Our key areas of support in this bill are in line with a growing number of other states and recommendations of the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. We support the inclusion of non-physical forms of abuse such as coercive control, stalking, and harassment as factors in family law matters such as orders of protection, child custody, and divorce cases. First of all, on the domestic abuse orders of protection. We support expanding the definition of abuse in the Domestic Abuse Order Protection Statute to include stalking, harassment, and coercive control. Currently, that statute for orders of protection narrowly defines domestic abuse as physical or sexual abuse or threats of physical abuse. And as a result, victims like Taylor McFadden Robinson and Mica Miller, who are experiencing non-physical forms of abuse, find themselves ping-ponged between magistrate courts and family courts because their experiences do not qualify for the domestic abuse order of protection, but then they are often denied access to stalking and harassment restraining orders in magistrate courts simply because they're married. Survivors of intimate partner violence should be able to seek comprehensive relief in a single court of equity without unnecessary confusion. Second, dating violence in both criminal and family court. We support expanding the criminal domestic violence statute and the domestic abuse order of protection statute to include dating relationships. This ensures that all intimate partners, regardless of marital status or cohabitation, receive equal Vine's Bill, Senate 143, included the addition of dating relationships to the domestic order of protection statute. Third, consideration of non-physical forms of abuse in child custody and visitation. We support amending South Carolina Code 63-15-240 to require family courts to consider coercive control, stalking, and harassment when determining the best interests of a child. A parent who exerts total control over a partner creates an environment that is inherently detrimental to a child's well-being.
I'm not trying to cut you.
Okay.
You can kind of speed up just a little bit for us.
So I actually printed out my testimony too.
It's fine.
So
if you want to get that to us, I'll be sure to share that with the committee as well.
Just a final thing is we recognize this is a comprehensive bill with many components to consider that may require in-depth study, and we urge the committee to recognize its potential importance in improving our state's response to domestic violence and providing key components to victim safety. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the committee? Thank you. Next up, we have Rebecca Creel. Ms. Creel, when you get to the mic, if you could state your name, the organization you're with, and your statement, please.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Creel. I am an attorney here in Columbia. I have a statewide practice that focuses exclusively on family court litigation. I have volunteered with SCVASA, SC-VAN, the sister care programs here in the Midlands. As a practitioner, I've represented victims and, much like Ms. Ward, have lost clients to intimate partner and case-related violence. I will say the introduction of this bill is encouraging, I think, to all of us within the practice of law, whether it's in the criminal side or on the family court side, because it's recognizing that intimate partner violence is not defined by physical violence, but is generally punctuated by physical violence between intimate partners. I also am encouraged to see from the Senate just such a bipartisan support of the heart of this bill, which is to ensure that we provide protection to the victims. I mean, the South Carolina, our statistics are deplorable. So I'm very encouraged, but much like the other practitioners who have spoken today, I do have some concern, and I do believe that there needs to be some work on the bill so that we can get to the fruit of what we're trying to do there. And again, I'm speaking only from the confines of a family court practice, which includes magistrate's practice as it relates to orders of protection. So the two, and I will try and keep my comments brief, the two great concerns that I have are the broadness of the definitions as we have put them forward in the statute, and what our burden of proof is going to be to reach that in the family court environment. Currently, if you are filing for a divorce on a fault basis, you must, and even in no fault basis, you must because I know it will meet the burden required. Another nuance to remember is that if a person is filing for divorce on a fault basis, they can do that while still living under the same roof. There is no requirement for the person filing to exodus. When that determination happens, as far as, for example, with adultery, you can ask that the court put the adulterer spouse out of the home. That's done at a temporary hearing. Temporary hearings, and even under the new Rule 21, are all done in writing. The concern that I have as this bill is put forward as the definition of coercive control, provides a very difficult rubric for practitioners to corroborate externally, which is what the court is looking for. So, for example, when we look for physical cruelty, we are looking for external corroboration, law enforcement involvement, injuries, medical issues related to the violence. That's difficult to corroborate, I believe, as set forth in the definition as put forward, understanding that at a temporary hearing, none of these issues are subject to cross-examination. So I think that's something, while family court is a court of equity, and these kinds of behaviors are things that the court does consider, my concern is making sure that if we're looking at it for purpose standard. In the confines of an order of protection hearing, whether that, yes, sir.
Ma'am, can I interrupt? Because you're
absolutely
talking about grounds for divorce, and Section 3 of the bill adds another grounds for divorce, as you're talking about.
Absolutely.
In your opinion, would that require a constitutional amendment?
I think it's a fair question.
Because Article 17, Section 3 prescribes the grounds for divorce. I know we've also put that in statute, but
and that is another point that I had not planned to necessarily explore because I have not researched that quite as well. But I do have some constitutional concerns, and we've since the 60s made, frankly speaking, our case law makes it hard to get divorced in South Carolina based upon the statute.
As it relates to domestic violence situations, do you have an opinion as to whether several things? One, requiring parties to be divorced for a year, but separated for a year before seeking a divorce on a no-fault ground. Do you believe that reducing the time from a year to some time less than a year would help in domestic violence situations?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think the longer you stretch out the process of a divorce in any circumstance, people in divorce court are not happy people. There is often incidents of intimate partner violence. The challenge is that intimate partner violence is a crime that's rarely reported or prosecuted. And so I do think if you shorten the time frame for what we think of as no fault, I think it will be helpful for everyone in the process.
And whether it would be done constitutionally or through a change in the code, do you think it would help in domestic violence situations if a person could file for a no fault divorce or separate support and maintenance while they're still living together?
Well, I think that's going to take a pretty significant change to the law. The case law, there's a case out of Lexington County that specifically says the legislature has put forth that you must be separated, and that means two houses. It doesn't mean a mother-in-law suite. Yes, sir.
If the law, as it relates specifically to domestic violence situation, and you're in a situation where you don't have a fault ground now, and you're still living together, but you're living in pretty bad circumstances.
And I will tell you, as a practitioner, it's a balance that we always draw, where I have clients who have to navigate filing and serving and the safety of themselves and their children. And frankly, in cases where there is domestic violence in the home, whether we can approve it to the judicial standard or not, it is never lost on me that time of service, as we've learned through the families that are here today, sometimes that is one of the most volatile and dangerous points. And so I don't know that I would agree that being able to file while in the same home would make things safer.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Because that initial kind of shot across the bow, to me, is one of the most dangerous times in the family court case. And sometimes not being in the same home is the best way to protect their safety.
You can navigate those, I think, but my concern is that we are trapping folks in violent relationships.
Oh, without question.
Yeah, but
I do. But
their inability to file and their inability to get a separate support and maintenance, while they're still under the same home. For coercive reasons, for financial reasons, you have people who are stuck in these situations.
And Senator Elliott, I absolutely agree with you, and I've seen that. I've been doing this almost 20 years, and I see it all the time. But I do think we have some constitutional questions that would have to be answered to solve that problem. So we've talked about the concerns that we have. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? So I've talked about the concerns I have as far as the lack of cross-examination in the temporary practice. So that's my concern with the shot across the bow and how maybe we could tighten the language to instruct practitioners as how to best present that to a family court judge. In the interest of the order of protection, I think we have a better space there to initiate these types of filings because we are looking at testimonial hearings that are subject to cross-examination. And recognizing that I have more than a few cases that begin in an order of protection hearing where clients struggle who are in violent environments, but not physically violent environments, who could, I think, benefit from being able to seek an order of protection that would address the issues of safety, of use of the home, of protection of children. And then from that space, be able to move that into, even if, whether it's a magistrate's court filing or a family court filing, move that into a domestic relations matter, whether that be an action for separate support and maintenance or be an action for divorce. So I think that would, if we focus on the order protection process, I think that addresses many of the evidentiary issues, the constitutional issues, and gives us a segue into the civil court of equity that often is not subject to cross-examination. Recognizing that orders of protection the burdens are higher because it does implicate the federal firearm statute. And so that's why we ensure that those are testimonial and subject to cross-examination.
Senator from Richland.
Thank you, Ms. Creel, and good to see you. You're a member of the family court section.
Yes, ma'am. I'm the chair-elect for the family courts.
Okay. Would it be possible if maybe you can give us your comments and maybe even what the section says in writing? I think we've kind of, and not to, I know you probably saw us kind of talking. We weren't trying to not listen, but we do have a hard stop, and we recognize based on the comments that there are probably some things we need to tweak. And so like to see something at least get further. So if we can get the comments, that will help us work together and be efficient of everybody's time.
I'd be happy to do that, Senator Devine. I would also note that while I am a member of the Family Law Council, I am here as a practitioner and not on behalf of the council. The bill as put forward is on our agenda. We are meeting later in the week, and I will be happy to talk with the other council members and see if any assistance that we can be from the family court side to promote what I think everyone is trying to do, which is ensure the safety of victims in South Carolina. Thank you.
I wish Abigail and Anna
Thank you so much, Ms. Creel. Next up,
I think
Joy
went over
McGee.
her head.
If you would, state your name, your organization, and your story, please.
Hello, my name is Joy McGee. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak with y'all today. I'm here on behalf of my friend Kristen Jane Etam, and I'm from Virginia. This is my friend Kristen, and this is her daughter, Lovely. We were friends for 20 years. That's pretty rare, and I don't think I have to state what a blessing it is to have somebody in your life that long. I'm only going to take 4 minutes of your time, but Kristen Jane Etam died on April 4th. 12 days ago. She was a singer, a public figure, and a mother who loved her 7-year-old daughter with everything that she had. She spent 6 years fighting grade 3 brain meningiomas and 6 years fighting coercive control, emotional abuse, and psychological manipulation at the hands of the man who was supposed to protect her. She lost both battles. Coercive control sounds like, why do you deserve to be a mother? Because you gave birth? Congratulations, you're a mammal. You should just kill yourself and get it over with already, because you're sucking me dry. You could have at least bought the furniture on credit, so when you die, I don't have to pay for it. Jump off the balcony and put me out of my misery. To be clear, he was talking about the balcony that was facing Johns Hopkins Hospital, where she was receiving brain surgery for her tumors. When her tumors stole her mobility, she was called lazy and pathetic. When she was left alone with a crying baby and no formula, that was used as evidence against her when he was the one who left her there. What kind of mother are you? You can't do anything, as proof that she could not do it alone without him.
When she found the courage to speak up, he threatened to take her daughter across the country and make her choose between seeing her child and receiving life-saving treatment for her brain tumors. She chose her daughter every time. Is there really a choice? She always chose her daughter. Kristen bore this in silence, not because she was weak, but because she was strategically and heartbreakingly wise. She knew that she could not survive radiation, brain surgery, and a custody battle at the same time. When she became bedbound, he took their daughter out of state. He filed for custody, claiming that Kristen, who could not walk, could not use her left arm, and could not see out of her left eye, had abandoned her daughter. He did not think that she would show up. He thought it was a slam dunk, but she showed up. In the last year of her life, Kristen appeared in a virtual court just to ask for the right to visit with her own child. The court did not recognize any of the abuse that was committed against her as admissible. He was 6'3", 200 pounds. She was 5'3" and weighed 80 pounds and could not move. No one protected Kristen. The system had no framework to recognize what had been done to her, and the same system that should have shielded her was also used against her as another weapon against her. She won a visitation arrangement. He did not honor it. Kristen Jane Etam died without seeing her daughter again 12 days ago. People find it hard to believe that these things happen. Coercive control is designed to produce answers are often reading and near named into law. S702. Her daughter will be at her viewing with her abuser on April 20th. Please give a voice to the ones that are still here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I think she just slam dunked it.
Next up is Steve Pruitt. If you would state your name and what organization you're with, sir.
Hi, my name is Steve Pruitt. I'm here as a voice, hopefully, for Mica and other citizens of Myrtle Beach who and all around who feel like we do not have a safe backing by authorities. I'm here, and my goal is to speak to you as the authorities on this because coming from Myrtle Beach, my step-uncle started the city council, and they would all be ashamed of the lack of trust in our town and support in things like this. I don't want to. That's why I come to you. You are the authority that we are looking for to support us in this. With this, I don't want to delay this off of this being with domestic and spouses, but I do want to point out it is not just women. I spent 3 years of my life in California in a band under coercive control, did not know this until later, was completely controlled, money, who I spoke to, how I couldn't even speak to my parents, things like this for 3 years. I had to escape that. And then another situation, I was married for 20 years. I went through coercive control in ways of manipulation, paternal alienation with my children, and all because of my wife and who her family was in our small town. I had no control. I went to authorities. They happened to be related to her, so there's that. Being with, I don't know the details between John Paul and, Miller and Mica. God knows. And other members of the church and things like this. And then when Mica went to the police, she had no support. My focus is on the authorities' role of this. after going through this, I taught at the school. I was going to follow Mica with her calling to go to Africa. I opened a school that was all pulled out from under her. And just, I'm trying to summarize all this real quick. I just want to put it under bullying. I'm a big guy, and I have lived it myself for years of my life. 20 years being married, 3 years of another situation. I was also, the reason I want to speak to authority on this is because I was also at Columbine. I was a teacher across the street and watched this all happen. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because of bullying and the role the authorities had in that. They did not, these two boys were, kids would pour milk on their head and teachers would stand there and laugh. There was no authority to go to. And I've even written a book, for Columbine, the bullying and the role of parents, teachers, coaches, and authorities, because kids bully. My brother bullied me growing up, but I could go to my parents. And I had somebody to go to depend on. When you don't have somebody to go to, you don't have authority to go to, you don't have the police to go to, you don't have the leaders of a church to go to, you lose all sense of any type of safety and security. Your fundamental foundation, what you need for safety and security. That happened there. This happened here with this in this situation here. And again, I'm trying to summarize all this. But it goes back to just needing authority we can depend on. We need laws we can depend on. Again, I don't want to delay this and take it and broaden this, but and I fully support. My heart goes out to women. I 100%. I just want to point out it's also in other situations. Like I said, I don't want to delay this and broaden this, but like I was in a band. I don't know what you call that. It was a domestic situation. We lived together. I don't know what that would be termed under, but I was under that control. I had to escape, almost like a convict running away. The situation with Columbine was because of bullying. They did not have authorities to go to. We do not feel like we have authority in Myrtle Beach. I don't know about anywhere else in the state. We do not feel safe in ways that we can go to the authority and get protection and get backup and get support. And when that happens, people lose money. If you go to authorities and they're not supporting you, in fact, in some cases, like where coaches don't play kids because of who their parents are, things like that, where you don't have that support, where a kid gets in trouble and the other one doesn't, and they go to the principal and they don't have that support, you lose your mind of all sense of any kind of justice, anything that you can depend on, and lose it. That's where people go, and that's where they either give in and live basic hostage slavery type of relationship in their homes or in their work or wherever it is in their church, and then or they, and not in this case, but might commit suicide, or they might give in, or they might run away, or like Mica did. She went to the authorities, even went further. We posted things on Facebook, did everything she could. Nothing. She was left alone. She went into hiding and did not come back out alive. And when we would do, I'm just pleading to you all as the authority. We need someone. I'm just speaking for citizens across the board. We need someone to depend on in these days. We don't have it. We don't feel safe. We don't feel like we have any support. And I'm just begging you somehow to make this into law so that when someone does go to the police, there is something to back that up and something they can stand on and not feel completely alone and lost and in such danger that there's nothing they can do about it. So I appreciate your consideration of this, and please consider this very serious to many of us.
Yes, sir.
For our safety.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Any questions? No. Thank you so much. We have one more person that would like to speak, Brandy Moss. If you want to state your name and what organization or what your story, please.
My name is Brandy Moss, and I'm just a survivor. Sorry, can you hear me better? My name is Brandy Moss, and I'm just a survivor of domestic abuse, narcissism, and coercive control. My heart goes out to the Francis family. Mica Mica got me through a lot of my separation and my divorce. I caught my husband, dear senators of South Carolina, I caught my husband cheating for the last time 5 years ago. My marriage came to an end after 21 years when he realized I was finally done. He seen me as property, not a person. I wounded his ego, and it triggered revenge in him. He would go on to place tracking devices on my car and tap things to hear my conversations. He stabbed my tires, he stalked me, watched me, and listened to me, all illegally. I went to the magistrate's office in my hometown. I live in Gaffney, South Carolina. Once I found the tracker and he told me, the magistrate said, "It's a nice setup, just worry about your divorce."
Wow.
He would not give me a restraining order and did not offer me any protection at all. I was afraid, and it was nothing to them. He would show up where I was, and even after changing my phone number, he texted me within the hour to let me know he had it. I hadn't given the number out yet. He then targeted my reputation with complete sick lies and accusing me of doing things he had done to me. I was the villain, and he was the lying, manipulative victim. He turned my own kids against me with lies, even went as far as telling them that I didn't love them. He was the hero. I couldn't date anyone because somehow he'd find out and turn them against me. I suffered on my job, and I lost my job due to this. He was out to make me miserable, and it was working. I feel all the damage could have been avoided if I would have had some protection and he would have had some consequences for his evil actions. It tore my life to shreds, physically and mentally, and I'm still dealing with the mental. I became so depressed and full of anxiety. I medicated, but nothing helped. I only wanted to stay in my bed and sleep it all away. I rarely eat, and even after 4 years of divorce, my appetite isn't right. I am currently on medication to help me with that. I have been divorced now 4 years, and to be honest, this pain still surrounds my life. I am not the woman he married, and I'm not the joking, laughing, happy teenager I once was. Instead, I take life way too serious, and I'm always looking at any person like they're out to hurt me and wondering what their motives are and what they are after. Living in coercive control damages you, and what they are after, I'd say the damage feels almost permanent. Many times I have said, if only I knew then what I know now. This control is and was mentally, physically, sexually, and financially. I had to learn life all over at the age of 40. Being isolated from people didn't help me. It put a debilitating strain on my social skills. I am still socially awkward, but I have to keep going and be a part of society the best I can. I went through physical abuse for many years. I put in for divorce for the first time in 2009, and he begged me to drop it, saying he would change. I loved my husband and wanted to keep my family together. I never would have had thought this man would lie on me, belittle me, slash tires, track me, tap me, follow me, harass me, or have others do it to me, including his girlfriend. I am still single and trying to put my pieces together and heal from all the damage. Either way, Mica and all victims have a voice and should be heard. Nobody should be scared and on edge constantly and no protection in place. A woman in abusive situations are usually not taken serious until it's too late. I consider myself lucky I made it through even as hard as it was, and I'm able to be here to speak up. I pray you will listen and take my life and my words into consideration by passing South Carolina Bill 702, aka Mica's bill. For not just Mica, but for myself and all victims all around. Thank you so much for your time and listening to my story.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. I'm gonna tell you. You're good. You're good. Yep. Thank you. Y'all's courage is what gives us the ability to do things and move things, and it's times like that. And I'm gonna tell you, most men. I was in law enforcement, and I found most people that are the suspects or the abuser were always weak. They're always picked on somebody they knew they could control because they were weak, because they had no other way of expressing some sort of authority over anybody, and that's how they do it. And that's unfortunate that those that come to speak, whether for themselves or for family members, why that kind of stuff happens. But your strength is very strong. Now, and I appreciate everybody coming and talking. And I'll tell you that we do have, I'm going to talk to staff and get them to work with Miss Ward, Miss Creel, and Miss Barber, and Miss Wells, because there's a couple things we have to address in this, and that's the constitutional issues that we have. Some of the criminal aspect, we have to address some of those things. But I'm as you can see, we have so many other committee meetings going on at this time of year. It's hard for us to get all of us in one place. So, Senator, is there a motion or?
Yes, I would move that we carry over. I think we've got. Is that Miss Sabrina? Is that we've got somebody? She said she was on the list to speak from.
Oh, I am so sorry. And we have somebody else. Yep. Sabrina Wiley, is that right? Shelby. I'm sorry about that. If you would state your name and who, if you're with an organization, and your story, please.
Yes. My name is Shelby Wiley, the Executive Director of Engaging Mind Services, and we provide trauma-informed services to survivors or victims of human trafficking. Today, I stand before you not only as a professional, but as someone who had the honor of serving a young woman by the name of Mica. Mica was one of our clients. And today, I speak in support of Senate Bill 702. Mica's Law, so that her story was not in vain. Mica was more than a name attached to a bill. She was a daughter and sister. She was a woman with potential. She was someone trying to navigate a situation that many could not see, but that was deeply controlling and harmful. Like so many survivors, what she experienced may not have always left visible bruises, but it left invisible wounds that were just as damaging. Coercive control is a pattern of behavior used to dominate another person's life. There's isolation from family and support systems, monitoring movements, communication, and daily activities, financial control and restriction of resources, psychological intimidation, manipulation, and fear. This form of abuse strips individuals of their independence long before physical violence or any type of violence occur. In our work, we've actually served over 220 survivors, and many of them did not initially recognize that they were being abused because the law does not always name what they are experiencing. Without legal recognition of coercive control, there is limited early intervention. Patterns of abuse will be overlooked. Survivors remain vulnerable until harm escalates. Mica's Law gives us the opportunity to intervene before it's too late. If we're honest, many stories like Mica's are only fully understood after the tragedy. But legislation like S.702 allows us to shift from reaction to prevention. It allows us to say, we see this, we recognize this, and we will not ignore it. This bill is not about criminalizing relationships. It's about identifying patterns of control that places individuals at risk. It equips systems to respond appropriately. It validates survivor experiences and creates a pathway for earlier protection. I urge you to support Bill S.702.
not just in policy, but in purpose. Let Mica's life be more than a memory. Let it be a turning point. A turning point where South Carolina recognizes that abuse is not only physical, it is also psychological, emotional, and it's controlling. And a turning point where we choose to act before another life is lost. As it is written in the book of Micah 6 and 8, He hath showed us, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before our God. Today, supporting this bill is an opportunity to do just that, to do justly, to love mercy, and to protect the vulnerable. We cannot bring Mica back, but we can make sure her story protects someone else. Thank you so much.
Amen.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm so sorry again.
That's okay.
A typical man's error. I'm overlooking things.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, there's a couple things we have to work on in this. Staff will work with everybody. We're going to get this to where we can jump and get this moving. I think in a better, faster way for everybody. And you had a motion for the carryover.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we carry over, and I also have a proxy for Senator Walker.
And I got the proxy for Senator Lieber and Senator Elliott. And so, and this time, all those in favor for carrying over, say aye. Aye. None opposed. The proxies will be in favor. And the victims too, and the families of the victims, feel free to please share your stories with the staff as well, so we can make sure that we touch on all those issues within this legislation as we work on it as well. Okay? Thank you all so much. So now we're going to go to Bill 745.
All right, y'all. Did y'all want to watch any more, or do y'all want to cut and we talk for a little bit?
Yeah, we can ask about you to your story. Ms. Baker, if you could give us a quick synopsis of 745, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the Help Find Missing Americans Act, the bill would allow the account holder of a phone to request limited information from the wireless service provider about a missing person via their device, including location data, call numbers, and data usage. The information would be limited to 12 hours prior to the disappearance through the date of the request, unless law enforcement requests otherwise. The process would be the account holder would have to provide a copy of a missing persons report and the contact information for the law enforcement agency.
Listening, or
upon verification of the request and the existence of an active missing person report with the law enforcement agency, the provider would disclose the information to both the account holder and law enforcement within 30 days, unless the law enforcement agency.
This is a different bill.
Yeah. Account holder. So we'll cut this
Finally,
one
the
off.
information would be used solely for investigation.
All right. All right, y'all. This is good news. This is wonderful news, y'all.
Yeah, you can tell that the committee's passionate, and that last statement says, I think they're going to try to get this pushed, y'all.
Yes. I think the last lady that spoke, thank goodness she came in and spoke. I think a lot of that stuff went over that one attorney's head. The one, I forget her name, I'm sorry. The one in the green suit.
Yes. And I hope they include her in some of the verbiage. And it didn't seem like there was that much that they had issues with as far as concerns with the wording.
Right.
But there's a month. We have a month until session ends. They can make this happen. Anybody else want to come up and talk about it? I first just want to thank everybody. I know I'm tired. I don't even know how long it's been, but about 2 weeks ago, I decided to go check and see what the status of the bill was. And I saw there was another bill number. And I was absolutely floored that they had rewritten and included all of these things that are critical. Anybody who's been through coercive control, especially in South Carolina, is not to undermine anyone who's been through it. But when you are in a state that has a year wait and does not recognize coercive control, that year is something that everybody cannot withstand.
Absolutely.
And to see all those things included, our chances of getting this hearing when it really wasn't being discussed at all. What I've seen in the last 3 weeks and what everybody has done, survivors have seen that. And I just want to thank everybody for all of y'all's hard work. It really is a miracle that we even got the hearing in time. And you guys didn't stop there. You kept sharing these people that were sharing their stories and being loud, and making sure that these lawmakers were seeing these survivor stories, and they knew we weren't going to give up. And so we're here today because everybody. And just know that it means a lot to a lot of people that can't talk about their stories right now. They still have safety issues. And I've talked to a lot of them. And to see people standing up has given them so much comfort and hope. Because a lot of the people that have been through this in South Carolina, they can't change what's happened to them. But every single one of them will tell you that they just want to save lives. And they want to save other people. They want to save the children that are put in the middle, that are used. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for all that y'all have done. This is
Yes, thank
something
you.
that's going to change lives.
It definitely is, and it's going to help provide more safety, and where officers can actually do something and judges can actually give those protection orders or restraining orders.
Yeah, I want to explain kind of how it works because I've been through it. Okay. Um, you know, you finally get out, right? And you've got this year wait. And most of the time when coercive control survivors leave, they've already been financially affected. A lot of times spouses have hid money. They have spent time already setting narratives. And so when you know you don't have these protections in South Carolina, but you finally say, I don't care. I don't care. I'm walking away from everything. I just have to, for myself and for children. They retaliate. And right now, South Carolina is handing them the tool to use the court systems. They spend a year of sending discovery that millionaires get. And you're talking about hundreds of dollars an hour for attorneys. They file motions, all in the intention of draining the finances. Because what happens at the year-end wait in South Carolina is there's a mandated mediation. And so by the time that you get to mediation and your legal bills are already $35,000 when nothing has really been accomplished, you have to sit in mediation and either make the choice to dish out another $20,000 to step in a courtroom and show a judge your evidence of the abuse that you've gone through, or you're forced to agree to your abuser in all things that they say in that mediation. And so it's leaving survivors in vulnerable situations. South Carolina is a poverty state. No one can afford those type of legal bills. And so when survivors have to make that decision in mediation, that abuse doesn't end there after the year. They have the upper hand. In most cases, they have all of the finances. And they continue to use that, especially if you have children. You know, children are children. You know, if a parent is dishing out money, is undermining you setting stability and rules and consequences to not following rules. They use those things to let the children do what they want, take them on shopping sprees whenever they break the rules, make sure that they don't have those rules at your house, at their house, all to undermine you and make things harder. It is a hell that does not end. And what this will do, because nothing is being done at the time when they leave, a survivor leaves, survivors are going through abuse until their children are on their own. It doesn't stop. The courts are telling them this is not abuse. There's nothing legally to stop them from continuing. And so it doesn't end even after those divorce papers are filed. They continue to abuse survivors. And a human body can only handle so much. I think we've seen through Mica's case, not talking about Mica herself, where we've seen lives that have been lost because they just, to be going through all of that and to look around and to see that the law, the state, nobody cares. Nobody thinks what's going on is abuse. All while you're being abused, all while you're worried about your child and what they're enduring, all trying to start over from scratch, from nothing, because you've been financially destroyed because of a year worth of legal fees. It's been proven that coercive control under long term, many women develop autoimmune diseases, obviously CPTSD. And so you're facing health problems, you're facing starting over financially, all while still continually to be abused. And so this is extremely important. And yes, Tracy. And we lost Tracy because I'm telling y'all that it is for the strongest of strongest. It's pure hell. And you have to remember that, you know, a lot of times survivors are spending their time trying to protect their children from the effects of all of it. So they're not publicly talking about all those things. They don't want to embarrass their children. They don't want to undermine the children's parent. But the children are being manipulated too. And so these abusers, they collect their flying monkeys. They work on that way. The moment that they start feeling that they're losing control, they start planning. Thank you guys all for everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Hermes was the prime example of that, who's no longer here. She even wrote a letter of complaint because of her attorneys, where she paid out immense amount of money that she had left through the court system for this that she had to go through, and got kicked out of her own home, lost custody of the one minor child, went through a lot of money to have nothing done, nothing heard, nothing submitted in the family court.
And they wouldn't give her a protection of.
No, they wouldn't even listen to her because of the position that her ex had in the state, in Horry County. He was able to manipulate all that, and from what I understand, if it's true, the judge they had is notorious for giving men children in custody battles and so forth, that he had the financial means to break her, and that's what he did.
And one thing I'll bring up about Tracy that I want to clarify very clearly is part of this law has to do with protective orders. I want to explain, we've been asking some of the wrong questions. I want to explain the difference between restraining orders and protective orders. In South Carolina, there is a standard restraining order that is part of the divorce filing. There is no legal separation in South Carolina, but you basically file that's the intent, and then you have to, what the issues are going on, and you have to wait a year. Within that, there is a standard restraining order. Don't talk about the other parent, don't harass them, those type of things. That is not what survivors need if they have issues of concern with their safety. That is handled civilly. An order of protection, what that allows a person, we know a piece of paper isn't going to stop somebody from doing something, but what it does do is if something happens, a police officer can arrest them immediately because they've broken the protection order. If someone breaks the restraining order within a divorce decree, that has to do with scheduling a hearing, getting in front of a judge, and it's not criminally an issue. Okay. So what else happens? Unfortunately, if you do lose your life, okay, if you have a protective order in place, number one, while a protective order is in place, the person that it's on cannot own a weapon. If you do lose your life, if whatever it, by a pew accident, it basically mandates an autopsy, and it also will halt any type of cremation so that a thorough investigation can happen. Those are extremely important. And I know that you can fill out a piece of paper, you don't have to have an attorney, but I want to make it very, very clear. Anyone who is experiencing any type of abuse, whether it's coercive control, you need the form filled out with an attorney, and you need to be walking into a courtroom with an attorney. And in Horry County specifically, there are organizations. Family Justice Center in Georgetown does have legal services that will help you with the process of getting that emergency protective order. Another thing that's, because it's very, very hard in South Carolina to get it, but one of the very most important things in that is that you have to show that you are in fear of your life. If that is not literally written on the form, and that is not expressed whenever you're in the hearing, I don't care how bad the things are on the form, the technicality of it, because those words, you did not express that you're in fear of your life, it will be denied. So it is critical that you have an attorney help you fill that out, and you have an attorney go into that hearing with you. And there are services that will help you do that if you cannot afford an attorney to do that with you. That is extremely important that this gets clarified, because there has been a lot of confusion. I also have, if I really ask for y'all to take a look at the, I have a pinned post about that that really goes into it and explains the differences. But I just feel like with what we're doing, and especially since the goal is to help other people, do you know how many people that I've had come to me that said, I didn't even understand that this is what I was dealing with? I didn't know that this was abuse. There are so many people that are learning for what we're talking about and what we're doing. It's so important that these type of clarifications are made so that they know the resources that are available there to help them, and they can learn from the lessons of us and others that have gone before them that have not, maybe didn't do it the right way or didn't have the support that we needed. So I just wanted to clarify that too. Um, I don't treated did Tracy have an order of protection? Did she try and denied one?
She tried to get an attorney to help her with that, and he wouldn't do it or even take a lot of what she was giving him for these proceedings that she was doing. She even wrote a letter of complaint against the attorney. Everywhere she turned, she wasn't getting anything. And I'm only assuming it's because of the position that he held in that county, because he had the upper hand with that. And it was kind of the same, you know, she's crazy, she's got mental problems. Just, she was at wit's end, which caused her to do what she did.
Yes, this is the thing. If you're going through abuse, especially coercive control, it is very important that when you're seeking an attorney, that they exhibit to you that they are ready to fight. They are ready, that they're capable. Talk to other clients that have specifically gone through the type of abuse that you're going through. The other thing, I have for I think 10 years now worked with women who have been through emotional abuse and coercive control. The biggest thing that I've seen that have helped women through the process is that you need more than just an attorney. Thankfully, this is being talked about so much now that they're actually advocates. It's almost like you need a team. Unfortunately, our lawyers are not as prepared to help fight these situations. And so don't think that all you need is an attorney. You need to think of it as building yourself a team of people for this process, because what you're going up against is someone who is an abuser is delusional in thinking that they can still control you, and they have a pattern of working and doing everything they can to work around the system, um, and you're not. So it's very important that survivors, when they're leaving, that they build a team around them. Don't just depend on having an attorney. Have an advocate. That there are specific advocates that understand law. A lot of them are attorneys, but they focus on being support systems for people, kind of being that mediator to say, hey, I think we need more than this right now, and can kind of fill in the gaps of maybe where your attorney is not in their role to do.
She even called the police, and there was a incident that was actually recorded, and he ended up talking to them first, and then they spoke to her, and she said, you know, she wanted the report made, she wanted him arrested, and they just talked down to her. I mean, they was very, very, I mean, it's recorded, and it's very sad when they look at her and she said, well, if you aren't going to do it, I'll just take what I have and go do it myself. And they threatened her with arrest, that it would be harassment. So, you know, all the way across, she tried everything, you know, even there at the end with the attorney that she spent well over $10,000 And nothing was done. Nothing.
Yeah, I think in her case there's the extra level of who she was dealing with as far as her spouse and who they have in their circle. And thankfully, over the last 2 years, I think that, do I think all of it's going to go away? No. Um, but I guarantee you this, people that are accepting funds to do favors, um, I bet they're going to think twice. Um, I do feel like there's a lot more to come. And I pray that some of that she had to deal with is going to be addressed. It's not going to bring her back, unfortunately. Um, but I think some of
It
that
all
hopefully,
changes.
I hope
I
it
hope,
gets addressed.
yeah, I hope it all changes so her death won't be in vain. And if it wasn't for Micah, we wouldn't be here to start with. And I think that's the important thing of all. Everybody who has stood up and keep everything going, especially Micah's family, to do what they're doing is going to hopefully be a change for a lot of people to come. That it won't end in, Micah being gone, Tracy taking her life, or anybody else taking their life, or being unalived. You know, it. I think it's going to hopefully be the groundwork that's going to change a lot of things that also needs to change within law enforcement and the judicial system.
Yes, I agree. And I just want to thank everybody who's not from South Carolina who has hung in here and has fought for the survivors in South Carolina. I truly believe that this bill is going to set the bar for the country, um, and is going to help this spread throughout the country, um, and get these same protections. If you look at a lot of the laws that are in place right now for coercive control, nothing compares to this. Um, it's really going to set the bar. Um, and
Yeah,
I really do
definitely.
feel like that. I do feel like, I mean, the sense that I felt from that committee is that I think they're committed, y'all. I think we have a chance, and I think we got to stay on them. We've got to keep this in the spotlight until mid-May. Session ends mid-May, so we've got to really, really, really stay supportive of this. There's people that are, this is not about somebody's page or growing followers or likes or whatever, but unfortunately, we do have to deal with an algorithm. And so, even if you just every day take 15 minutes and just go search the word Mica's Law or coercive control or the bill number, and just go watch some of the videos that are there, making sure you're reposting and stuff, that is huge in pushing out. Um, we've got to stay loud because all of these other bills that are kind of at the finish line too, they're going to be barking for theirs to get finalized before sessions ends, because the reality is that mid-May they clean all the bills out, it officially dies. And in South Carolina, every single seat in the state all the way up to the governor is up for election. And so what that means is that in November, session doesn't begin, and new session does not begin until January. And so that means that a bill has to be rewritten, reintroduced, a sponsor assigned to it, and it starts over from scratch. Um, and currently, Stephen Goldfinch is running for Attorney General. If he wins that in November, then he is not allowed to be a sponsor on this bill. So we have to trust that somebody else is going to put their name behind a new bill. So it is, besides all the obvious reasons of people need protection now, we can't wait a year for this to go through for people that are sitting there waiting to get out, because there are in South Carolina people that are choosing not to leave because, number one, they can't afford what people go through in that year, and they are in that, and also the children are still in that. And so I just encourage you guys to keep on fighting. I know everybody's tired, but we're doing it, y'all. It's happening, and I feel very, very good about that this can possibly happen. So let's just stick together, and we're about to make history.
Even in my state, it's the same as it is in South Carolina. Doesn't really help men or women when it comes to this bill, and hopefully it will be the groundwork for many states to jump on board with the same laws, because even I've experienced it in my state and not getting any help, even from as far as the courts, the district attorneys, the prosecutors. It doesn't matter. I've been there, and basically there is no voice for the victim at the moment. So it leaves a lot to say that if the person survives, to not have the proper resources that they need to try to get their life back and get started without fear. So it runs in many, many states, just like it does South Carolina. And that's the sad part, that things like this have to happen or come to this point to try to get the laws to change, to actually do what they're supposed to do originally, is to protect people.
Now, I will say, I mean, everybody knows my stance on Regina Ward, but she did make a good point about, when the cops show up and stuff, they have to go by the written law, or what, they have to be able to be guided by a law that's there. And that's something that they don't have with coercive control. So, I do want to thank Regina Ward for pointing that one out, because I mean, that is true, and that is a very vital thing that we need to have, so that way officers and law enforcement can look and see, okay, well, that's, this code, and so we can proceed to help, because a lot of times, I mean, unfortunately, officers and stuff, their hands are tied, because I mean, there's not really much they can do unless there is marks or, bruises or damage and things of that nature. So,
Absolutely. I agree.
so I do want to thank Regina for pointing that out, because that was a very good point, and probably something that a lot of us, I mean, we probably thought about it, but we didn't, like, it didn't stop in our brain, that's a big deal for officers and law enforcement to be able to look at that code and say, okay, we can step in.
Absolutely, I agree. And I do believe that, in healthcare, if you've ever worked in healthcare, you have to go through HIPAA training every single year. You almost have the thing memorized, and but what that does is it drills you in your head, so that whenever you're in real life situations and something comes about that may not fit directly cookie cutter into that situation, it helps you in that moment to make a better decision on how to respond. And I do believe that law enforcement, lawyers, and judges should have a training on what coercive control is. There needs to be standards in when law enforcement is called, how that goes, how that happens. And I think that if they would prioritize having the training, I think it's needed with judges. I think it's needed with law enforcement, attorneys, all of them, that would help better facilitate those situations whenever law enforcement is called. And when survivors go to meet with an attorney, to express what's going on with them, so attorneys better understand what people really face when they're dealing with coercive control.
Yeah, that's right. I want to thank you, Veronica, Justice for Mica. I want to thank you for all you've been doing, the way you've been reaching out, reposting Justice for Mica. And I believe if this bill gets passed into the law, it's gonna go a long way. It's gonna become a voice for the voiceless. It's gonna help a lot of people who are being depressed emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And I believe this law is gonna get passed into law, and everyone, every every woman and child who are being tormented are going through domestic violence, they're gonna get a better life out of it. I love what you are doing, and I'm always at you guys back. I'm always gonna support in any way I can and repost and share. Even if there is more I could do to support, I will definitely do that. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting and sharing and helping us get the word out. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much, Henry. You have been a huge support to everybody's content and helping, and we really do appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's what we do for ourselves.
I know it's one step of many steps that needs to be taken. And I think another
It's a
step is
gradual
get
process.
corruption with it as well. That ceases and more people get help, and that's including men. There needs to be more for men as well as, women and children, because there's a lot of men that don't speak up, and hopefully it will give the pathway for more
Men
men to come
don't
forward to get help.
men don't actually go through a lot compared to women. Women are the mostly abused and deprived of so many infidelity. Men don't really go through much of abuse. The women are the one who does. Um, all by the way, we are fighting for justice for everyone, not for not for only the women, both man and woman. Any injustice, illegality, that's what we are fighting for, and I believe justice is gonna prevail. Definitely, once we work together in love, harmony, and peace and unity, the world is gonna become a better place for everyone to live in peacefully.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank
And
you.
I do think it's going to I think it's going to take time, but having these laws in place, I think, is going to help prevent some of the actions. Because when you know that there's going to be consequences, it's going to make people start thinking twice before. These abusers they know that there's no consequences. And so it's escalating the abuse. And so simply by having it, not only is it going to offer help for survivors to get out, but it's going to take time, but eventually it's going to change. It's going to change and prevent from the abuse from even happening. Um,
Yeah, rate of abuse is gonna come down because many will be scared the repercussion of their action. Many is gonna step down, some is gonna commit, but through disciplinary and example, some people are gonna back down, and some crisis and illegality that happens is gonna drop down. It's never gonna be like before. Once this bill is passed and it's been abided by the law under punishable offense towards any offender who violates it, crime is crime is criminal offenses is gonna drop. Domestic violence offenders, it's gonna drop down compared to how it's been before.
I just want to say, oh, I'm sorry, Henry, were you done? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you done? Henry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you done speaking? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
done. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
done speaking for now. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to say, and you all bear with me. I'm sorry. My voice is a little, I'm in South Carolina, so all this pollen, of course. But I wanted to say, first off, thank you all so much for everything you all have been doing for, this has been almost 2 years, and ignore my kitty cat because she's very vocal today. Yeah, Sailor, I hear you. I just wanted to thank all of you. We've been, a lot of us, for almost 2 years. I don't think we knew the magnitude of what, when Mica's life ended, what would begin. And I know we all have some amazing stories. I've seen God in all of this, all of it. Even when we have been like, angry, I felt discouraged, maybe scared, all of the things. But I just wanted to say, wow, I know a lot of people, I did see in the comments, a lot of people missed Abigail speak. Wow. And she's in her early 20s, y'all. And that's her sister. And Anna, I know she was there with her. I was just like, God is so good. And it was such an emotional, I sat in my car at a local Starbucks in the upstate of South Carolina, and I cried, and it was hard to listen. But also I said, God, you're good. You're so good. Didn't know what, it was kind of like in the beginning, I don't know. I didn't know what they were thinking. I didn't know what was going on. And I thought, and I heard a few things and I felt that little bit of discouragement, but I said, no. And it has not rained here in about a week. It's been a while. We need rain desperately. And I'm driving my son to school this morning, and it was small, but I looked up and there was a rainbow. And I said, thank you, God. Thank you. I know some of you by name. I've heard some of you speak. I've heard some of your stories. We've never met. I've met some of you probably in person at the benefit concert. If you were there, I have, it's been such a blessing in the midst of such tragedy. But look at what is being accomplished. And look at, we're here almost 2 years later. And I have never seen anything like this in my 47 years of life. And it's amazing. And I know there's a lot of hurt. And I know there's a lot of questions, and we feel discouraged and beat up some days. But God is good, and there is going to be justice for Mica. And no, she's not here. And that breaks my heart. But I know she would be so proud. And I know she would stand and fight for every single one of us. Man, woman, child, because that's who Mica was. And when I heard her speak the first time, I saw the light of Christ in her. And that still shines on, and her voice is being carried and it's being amplified. And so when you feel discouraged, when you feel, just angry and all of the things, all of the emotions, maybe people aren't so nice. Maybe there's been people that haven't been so nice. And I know a lot of things came back up that I had put away, I thought. And sometimes I know that we all have felt this. Why am I here? I can't do this. I can't do this. And one day, very soon, I'm going to tell my story. And it's not just my story. It's a story that's because of Mica. It's a good story. It's a positive story. And I hope that y'all will understand, like, and I know other people have the same things have happened and you know that you are here for a reason. You're still here for a reason. And it's beyond comprehension sometimes. It's the supernatural, and this is a spiritual warfare. But God is good. God is good, and He is going to see this through. We're all here for a reason. And like I said, when I share, when I'm able to, and it will be very soon, I know that there's going to be many. It's just going to be, and we're going to give God the glory. But this is an amazing time that we live in, despite what things look like. And we will see this. We will see why we were called. And when you felt like giving up, and I know I've been there. In fact, I walked away for a week. I walked away for a week because there was some nasty stuff going on. And I was like, I can't deal with this. And I was sick physically and all the things. And, but I got pulled. It wasn't like God pulled me right back in. And in October, it was October of 2024, after He pulled me back in many times, because many times I wanted to walk away, He showed me right in front of my face, this is why you are here. And you cannot walk away. And you won't walk away. And I've seen God's goodness. And I want you all to know, no matter what, that God is good. And every single one of you has been a blessing, whether you realize it or not. No matter what, you have blessed someone or many people. And lives are being changed and laws are being changed. And God is hearing all of us. Every tear that is shed, He collects them. And everything is being heard, and God is good. And we're all seeing it. I know we see it. But just keep fighting, because you're stronger now than you ever were. You're stronger today than you were yesterday. And that's it. I'm sorry. It's emotional, but God is good. And just remember that. Hold on to that. You're here for a reason. You're here for a reason.
I do think that that is something that would be important to Micah, is that, and I try very hard to, some of the things like I've put out, it has nothing to do about bragging about victories or those type of things. When you have faith, and you go through what Micah went through, or what other survivors go through, you get to a point where it is so bad that you either give up or you say to God, okay, God, you said give it to you. I'm giving it to you. And you learn to listen to what He asks of you today, because He doesn't give you the whole plan. And I truly in my heart believe that it's important for Micah that others see that even in the most horrific things that happens, that God will use those things for His good. And we are watching those things play out, regardless of the distractions, regardless of the ugly. What needs to happen is still playing out, and it's going to happen. people all the time look at Mica and they see all this joy that she had in her eyes, and we know all the things that she endured. And I think what she was so trying to say in a lot of those videos is what she wants people to understand is that the God she knew, regardless if she was in a church that was teaching false prophet stuff, she had a true relationship with God. And God protected her in some ways from a lot of the things that she was enduring to the level that they were. And that what you saw in her face really was joy. And you ask yourself, how in the world could you have joy and be enduring those horrendous things? That was real. That wasn't fake that you saw in her eyes. And the way she was able to do that is because she had faith in God. And I just want to say that because I think it would be important to her. And I think that's something that's really important. I can imagine as somebody of faith that probably one of the biggest concerns for her with all of these things coming out is that it would turn people against God and or the consideration of ever choosing to look into who he was. And I think the beautiful thing of what's happened over the last 2 years is that I know that I've talked to people personally that who do see that what's happened over the last 2 years is more than what humans are capable of making happen. We have faced some impossible things. And I just hope all of you that have helped, you should be proud of yourself for seeing impossible in front of you and still doing the work, because it's making a difference. And I know a lot of other people that can't speak right now are so incredibly thankful for everything that everybody's doing, especially the people that don't even live in South Carolina. It means everything to the survivors that are watching, and there are survivors watching.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm trying to read the comments some.
Veronica, is that what you're showing? Is that today? That sign?
Yes.
Who is that? Is that
Yes.
Anna on one side
Yes.
and Abby on
That's
the other?
Yep, that's Abby and Anna. I was sent that a few minutes ago.
That's a wonderful picture. That's a wonderful picture. I definitely hope to. So we'll see that, I'm sure, on Facebook or TikTok or.
Oh yeah. You know,
Beautiful, beautiful picture. And you did such a great job with that. Veronica, I love you, girl. You know, I love you. And look at all this that y'all done. This was an army. This wasn't one person, you know, it was so many people. But look. And I know she would be so proud. Y'all know that she would be proud. She would.
Thank you for Justice for Mica is coming, because she helped get that done so that they could have it at the State House.
Oh yeah. I mean, it just amazes me that. I mean, I know, like, I've watched, you know, my uncle was unalived by his wife in 1993. And she tried to say that he unalived himself. But in his situation, they bagged his hand, so they knew that it was not. And so that being said, I had a lot of bitterness in my heart. I was saved, but it hurt because I was young, you know, and it was right before my birthday. But all that being said, later in my life, I mean, it took me a long time, and I will say that I was an adult before I actually dealt with that. I carried that. I mean, I loved the Lord, but I was angry and I didn't quite understand, and I blamed I blamed him. I blamed God. Why did you let this happen? See, God didn't let it happen. God, it was the sin that was in the world. It wasn't God. God didn't do that. It was the enemy. But it took me a while. I was just so hurt because of what it did to my family. It was like what left the pew pew, you know, it left him and it lodged. And it did, like, there's damage still there, but it made all of us, my family, who we are today. And not that this makes me any more qualified to be called to this than anybody else, but it was the understanding of what it's like to be a victim and what it's like to be a victim's survivor. And so then you see how God uses those different things that really hurt you and broke you, but made you who you were. And then when you figure that out, you're like, God, you know, this is why you do these things. Because if none of us had ever experienced anything, who would be able to help other victims? And we could say, well, you know, but I still didn't want to go through that. No, nobody wants to go through any of those things. But God uses what the enemy does to try to destroy us. He uses it for good. And we're seeing that. And I'm still learning. We're always still learning. But he's good. He is good. And I know Mica, I didn't know her, but I think we all feel like we've got to know her. And it amazes me. But I have, what I was going to say is I followed true crime, you know, for years, watched it with my mom and stuff, because that's where in 1993, turned 14. The next day after he died, I turned 14 years old. And, you know, from there on, like, that's where that fight in me, that seeking justice constantly. Anytime I saw it with anybody, I just wanted justice. I didn't want them to suffer. But that being said, it just brings all this, like, kind of full circle for, like, if all of us just kind of, you know, we're questioning, we're wondering, there is a reason, and he uses all of the bad for good. Again, sorry, I kind of got distracted with the cat again. She's running around. If y'all could see her right now, she's interrupted. I've had lives before, and she would just completely knock everything over, unplug my phone one time, pulled it out of my hand. It was funny. But anyway, we will all see, but it's coming. And I don't know, it's just, when you hear other people and it's just like, wow, you know, because you don't know until people start talking, and you have no idea. And you're like, I didn't know that. I didn't even know this person went, wow. And, you know, it starts making sense, but it's, again, all called for a reason. So again, I don't think I can ever say thank you enough to all of you, because 2 years later, I've never seen anything like that, like, before. And there are people that, you know, definitely there's so many victims that their voices are being heard. But all that being said, just real quick, like, that's why for 2 years, people are still fighting. It's incredible when you think about it. It's so tragic, but look at what all has been accomplished. Look at how many people now have gotten out of very bad situations, people that are finding their voice, laws that are going to be passed. Justice is coming. And y'all are all a part of this. So thank you.
Well, I also wanted to point out too that also with this law, in ways that it could help victims is, you know, like, if we already had this law in place, or already had a way for law enforcement to be able to pinpoint and say, hey, okay, this is stalking, cyber stalking, because we know Tracy and Mica were both cyber stalked online. They were, you know, things put out on them that online, like, you know, Tracy couldn't even find an outlet in the Justice for Mica groups without her husband or ex-husband stalking them and going in and leaving messages and even sending messages to the Justice for Mica group saying, you know, oh, she don't. So she was even isolated, like even on Facebook and other places. So I mean, there's so much more to this, and it could help so many women and men and children too, because a lot of times children get caught in the middle and they end up with the biggest loss of all, because now Tracy's kids don't have their mom, and it's just, it's so heartbreaking knowing that during these 2 years that we've been fighting, that we have lost so many people throughout the just little bit of time. 2 years, you know, I mean, that don't seem like a lot of time, but we have lost so many big voices, and one is too many.
I agree with that. Too many people are silenced. For a year, Tracy was stalked on the Book of Faces for Justice for Mica. And even moderators received messages about Tracy to maybe get her taken off of those Justice for Mica Book Faces communities, and how he was going to use everything that she was saying to try to tell people what she was going through and facing was going to be used against her in court. To one of the moderators. And then him speaking after she passed about, hey, she's not here anymore, take her off. Like she never existed. Some of the things that's been said to silence her, even by other creators, to make it look like she was trying to portray herself as Mica.
Yeah.
And nobody would listen to her.
That's the thing about when you're going through this, especially if you have children, then if you add a layer of your partner having excessive finances or a lot of connections, you isolate yourself. And when you finally find your voice, it can come across as you're first of all, you're so excited that your body is even capable of it coming out of your mouth because you felt silenced for so long. It can come across as this person seems all over the place, and they seem like they're just coercive control, emotional abuse. The best way, this is how I describe it to people, is imagine if your arm was kind of just sitting on a chair and there was a drip of water coming from the ceiling. You're like, oh, there's a drip of water. And then in a few minutes, another drip happens and you look and you feel it. You know, after a while, you look over at your arm and there's this hole in your arm and you're like, how did I get a hole in my arm? But it's because the water is continued to keep dripping. Coercive control and emotional abuse is a desensitizing. If you've ever been through physical therapy, where I just had a treatment where they go and they slowly work on an area and they get harder and stronger and harder and stronger so that you don't feel the pain of how deep they need to go. That's what happens. And science proves that what that does to the brain, it actually is shown in brain scans. it desensitizes the person to see how serious things get. So even for someone going through it, it's difficult to comprehend. So for someone who hasn't gone through it, it's very, very difficult for people to understand the level of intense manipulation that goes into this. And just, the human nature of grasping that people are capable, especially when they see them out in public and they see them look like a good mother or a good father, and loving and all those kind of things. It's hard to comprehend that they're doing these things, and they're very, very good at covering their tracks, because someone who is like that is not just like that in their daily life. They have a set of people that they look like superstars to. But in most cases, in anything that they obtain, they use manipulation to obtain it. And so most cases, have been doing it all their life. And they get good at it. And it's very, very difficult to, and they cover their bases. So if you do talk about the stuff, they've got an answer for it. They've got an answer for it. And by this time, they have emotionally messed with your mind so much that when you do start talking about the thing, sometimes you seem scatterbrained, sometimes you seem overly emotional, sometimes there's reactive abuse, where that moment when you snap, and of course they're going to use that to say, look here, look at this person. Okay, they're just not mentally stable. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse for people to not believe survivors, but it is very hard for survivors to explain what they have been enduring.
That is so true. Because it's like you even feel crazy like trying to explain it to someone, and especially when you have, when your partner is, a big time pastor or an officer, or, with these higher up jobs and stuff, people just, like, oh, and then it sounds crazy, I guess. Well, how am I trying to say this? Like when you're trying to explain it and stuff, like even like with me trying to explain a situation, like I feel like I'm crazy, like trying to explain it. Like how I'm explaining it sounds crazy, but it's like, but it's real. It's real life. But it's hard for a lot of people to understand and just grasp, especially when the partner does have an higher up job, or, like well known in the community and stuff.
And sometimes, so long-term emotional abuse causes CPTSD, which also causes short-term memory loss. And also similar effects, kind of like if you had ADHD a little bit. And so the thing with coercive control and emotional abuse is a lot of times you have these big things, but a lot of times the real damage is all of the littlest things that happen. Let me give you an example. Making sure when you get a cheese thing out of the refrigerator and you leave the wrapper on the thing, and then you just, everything you plop, maybe the survivor, the survivor is having to work 40, 50 hours a week, and the abuser purposefully is making sure the home is extra dirty so that they have extra stuff to do, which exhausts them even more because it keeps them down, so that whenever something comes up and the survivor speaks up about it, something else comes up, it's easier to wear them down to get them to do exactly what they want. So if you go tell somebody, my spouse, he just like he'll get a piece of cheese out of the refrigerator and he'll take the wrapper off and just leaves it on the counter, and he all these things that sounds like, okay, come on now. That's not abuse. It's not just the one thing of that. It's little things that they do that don't seem like this major issue, but they will purposefully do all type of things. So whenever they need to do the bigger thing, you're absolutely worn down, and maybe you react out of character, or so that they can record you, or they can get, and they will do that as well. And so it's all planned. It's very orchestrated, and so you know. Um, Especially if you don't even understand what coercive control is, you're in this situation going, maybe it's something that just in life as spouses, an issue comes up and it needs to be handled. And so you're sitting there trying to solve the problem, and you are doing research, you're offering suggestions and options or whatever, and they just completely just nothing is ever good enough. They don't have solutions, but your solutions are not. And you sit there in your mind and you're like, well, how can I explain this better? I'm not explaining this right. When in reality, they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it on purpose to wear you down as control. And those are hard things to prove. So the part of this bill that's so important is the pattern. People that are concerned, and trust me, I've saved several people that are starting to get a little antsy about this bill passing, with some of the comments that are going on in some of these posts. The deal is, it's not a one-time thing. Everybody acts out of character sometimes. There is no excuse ever if it becomes something that physically harms someone. But, everybody says something to their spouse sometimes that is just not okay. That's not okay, and it's hurtful. That's not what this is about. This is a pattern of manipulation where the intent is control. So that's not a concern with this bill. It's not going to be somebody, he yelled at me one time, or he told me I was acting stupid one time, or those kind of things. That's not what this is going to be about, for anybody who has concerns that could be. But what it does is that one thing that does need to be thought of is that if these protections are put in place, everybody that's passionate about this needs to continue the narrative of talking about, educating on what coercive control is, because it's crucial that it's recognized as soon as possible. We've always told DV survivors, whenever you're ready, it's time. It takes time, and that is absolutely true. But what people need to understand is that the longer that you stay in an emotionally abusive, controlling situation, this is backed by science in all reputable groups. I don't even use the right word. That it actually rewires your brain. It causes brain damage that is seen in scans. And so it is critical that people are educated on this and that can identify the signs early, so that they can look at options about removing themselves from situations. Because it leads to, there's a high number of not only CPTSD that comes with it, but it also, there is a high number of survivors that develop autoimmune disease. So if you're leaving and you're basically taking a huge financial hit, and you're coming out of that, and you're in needing to heal from all of that, taking a financial hit, the last thing that you need, makes it extremely difficult, and it also puts you at risk of being even more financially vulnerable if you're developing chronic illnesses on top of that. especially when you still have children to raise, which could and is happening. I cannot tell you. I manage a group, 100,000 people worldwide, mostly in the U.S., emotional abuse support group. How many people, how many survivors are losing their children because they are so emotionally beat down by the time that they leave that they are deemed unfit to be the primary parent. And that's heartbreaking, you know. So while we do need to support survivors in it being in their own time, we need to continue the discussion on what coercive control, emotional abuse does if you allow it to go on long term, and what the consequences can be if you do decide to wait it out for the children. Because I can tell you this, no matter how much you think you're protecting your children from what's going on, they know. And in the end, whenever you do decide to leave, they're going to be affected anyway because the abuser is going to make sure that they are.
Now, wasn't that something that Tracy's ex-husband did, was weaponize the kids against her?
And her son was actually present during one of the encounters with the police, actually. I think they were put in the middle of a lot of things and seen a lot of things that they should have never been a part of.
And even with the children present and witnessing and stuff, there was nothing that the officers could or would do because there was no kind of cohesive control law in place. Am I right?
Yeah, that too, and the position he held too. So it all aligns with the bill being passed to get everything changed to help people, but also the corruption as well, and the positions that people hold in Horry County that kind of helps people get away with that, and I feel the kids are really suffering from what transpired, because the emotional side of things, with what she was talking about, Tracy suffered from because of it.
It's very hard when you're in a emotionally abusive situation, controlling situation, especially if you're doing a good job in protecting your kids from it happening to you. And maybe they're not being the greatest present parent, but they aren't harming the kids. It's very hard when situations happen because, especially if you're someone who does not want to ruin the relationship with the parent and the child, that's what you're trying to preserve, but to end the situation, but you still want them, if the parent is capable, you want that child to be able to have that parent. It's very difficult when things happen to balance ensuring that your children understand that that behavior is not okay without demeaning the other parent. It's very hard.
And that was one of one of the main reasons that I know of personally with Tracy was that it made it even harder for her to go and like maybe go into hiding or seek help or get the help that she needed. Not only did she not have the law by her side, but if she was to go anywhere, try and get help or anything, like her kids were like her whole life was her kids, from my understanding. And so that was one of the main reasons why she couldn't, because it was either she go get help and try and fight this, or she loses her kids altogether.
And that's what happened. She got evicted from the house she co-owned, lost custody of the one minor child, and was put out.
And it was so easy for him to to just do and control her every move in life.
Well, he used it also to control her, to try to get her to do what he wanted, to instill that fear into her, and to control that narrative for her to behave in a way that was going to suit him, other than trying to do things more on a civil note, because that control that he wanted and obtained, he wanted to keep, and he did.
She had to wait the full year.
And the moment that they realize that they are starting to lose control, the plan is initiated. When they realize that they are losing control, most times that point, there's still a lot of time left before the survivor actually leaves, because they are just like it's like a bear waking up from hibernation. And so that is when, if a survivor is reaching out, you don't have to worry about if it's true or not. The courts, hopefully, if this passes, the courts are going to decide. People just need them to believe them, and don't assume that. So this is the thing: is that it's a long term thing when survivors leave. The process of leaving, and that is a lot to put on somebody's shoulders, even the people who care about them. It's a lot. And unfortunately, people walk away. People that you have, family walks away. They make excuses for themselves because honestly, they just don't want to spend that much time dedicated to helping somebody. They're in their own lives. And they come up with excuses to justify it. So when someone is asking for help, and you may know them as somebody who has a lot of friends, maybe they have a big family, don't assume that they are getting the support that they need, because these survivors lose a lot of people that you never would have guessed would have walked away from them. Some people are worried that you're going to be financially distraught and you're going to ask them for money. So they'll just use anything they can to kind of excuse why they can't really be. And some people are able to show support for a short period of time, and it's just too much for them. And that is understandable because it's a lot and it's a long road. And that's why it's important for survivors to kind of have a team of people surrounding them.
Yeah, and I think more awareness and education and stuff, because I mean, a lot of times too, the abusers, they isolate their partners, and then a lot of, on the outside, people see it as, well, they didn't call me or do whatever, and they hold that against them. But it wasn't by choice by the victim. It was the abuser that isolated them from the family. They wouldn't allow to call. They wouldn't allow to talk to anyone, or walk down the street or anything. And I think a lot of times people, they don't see that part of it.
Yeah, there's a lot that I think is unseen, and even history has showed us all that a lot of times, more so than not, once somebody has left to try to get away from any abuse, that's even more dangerous than staying themselves. And that shouldn't be that way either. There should be things put in place. I mean, Mica left. Mica was trying to go on with her life and trying to do what she needed to do to stay away from that abuse. And to see other people going through the same abuse and no longer here to speak for themselves. It should never be that way. And I think a lot of people who are in the situation, that they see, well, God, if it's more dangerous to leave, then why should I, I'll just stay and endure it, and maybe it'll save my own life. And it really, there's such a balance to where, there's a lot of people, and you can hear, and when you scroll even through social media, they said, oh, you need to leave, you need to leave, you need to leave, you need to leave. Yeah, there needs to be a safe space to go to, things in place to help victims in the moment of need, to make sure that those protections are in place once they leave. And that, I think, is a big downfall when it comes to the judicial system and the laws that are created. They're not enforced, or somebody knows somebody, or, I mean, there's so many variations to it, and it's not a cookie cutter thing. There's too many variations.
Yes. And it's a real reality. And that is why this bill is so important. I mean, if you look at, we've been looking at Myrtle Beach, okay? First off, South Carolina has no high-rise cities, okay? Um, Myrtle Beach brings in about 70% of the income for the entire state of South Carolina. So what you see in Myrtle Beach, that um, quality of life is not South Carolina. South Carolina is a poverty state. And so um, there are no there are not many South Carolinians that can afford to pay $35,000 and then pay another 20,000 at the end of the year to be able to go and put their evidence in front of a judge. Maybe it's evidence of how much non-marital money that you've put in that um, that is justifiably yours. That's going to be enough, because when survivors hit this point, especially if it's been a very long period of time, they are prepared, fully prepared, that they are going to take a massive financial cut. The only thing they want is to be able to have a stable home for them and to raise their children, um, and for the abuse to stop. And right now, you're exactly right. Not everybody has support systems. Um, and most people in South Carolina do not have that kind of money. And when I say to you, in mediation, survivors have to agree to whatever their abuser says, or come up with $20,000 to step in a courtroom, that is the decision. So basically, there continue. Uh, and the other biggest thing is that if you're left financially destroyed, that is making, that is, of course, this happens to men and women, um, but that is making women and their children more vulnerable to trafficking, and cult um, recruiting. And that if you talk to any expert in trafficking, the number one thing to combat it is to reduce people that are vulnerable. And I know that this is not a political thing about people that say, we don't need to be paying for people. That's not what this is about. But this is ways that we can do that, because in reality, what South Carolina needs to understand is that South Carolina citizens are paying to help provide basic needs for survivors of coercive control, while 9 times out of 10, the abuser for years has been hiding money, positioning themselves, and then gets them to mediation where they have to agree to a point that is going to leave them financially distraught. And so, who has to pick up that bill? The state has to, with assistance. And so, what South Carolina needs to think about is that you guys are paying when these abusers are sitting over there with their wads of money. Now the state is having to pay for these basic needs, and it is putting um, survivors and children in risk of being targeted for trafficking. Because trafficking isn't what people think it is, where a lot of people think it is, where a white van pulls up to Target and snatches you. That is not the majority of what it is. What it is vulnerable people that don't have many options, and they have to do something to survive. And they associate themselves with people to earn money doing certain things or make choices that they may never have. And mind you, they're coming out being completely emotionally abused for years. Their brain has been altered. That's been proven by science. They're not really in the state of mind. They're desensitized from things that are obviously not okay. And they're faced with a choice of being homeless. And there are people making decisions that are putting their lives even further at risk. And so I really do hope that I really felt that committee gets the severity of this. That was very, very promising. I don't know if y'all did, but I definitely felt that.
I did. I definitely did. And my dream since, I've gotten into I guess this world and stuff is for it to, first get passed in South Carolina. I mean, we gotta have a starting point, and then we make Mica's law nationwide. And what was I gonna say? I done forgot now. When I was where I was, I had somewhere I was gonna go with that, but well, also too, another thing that I've noticed is that a lot of times when this stuff is reported, or the spouse tries to leave, it's considered, like when JP took Mica's car, they said, oh, that's marital assets. Or when she would, or like with her house and stuff, JP could kick her out the house, but for some reason that wasn't marital assets. But if she tried to kick him out the house, it's marital assets. So it seems like the abuser it seems like they get more and can take more, and they can get away with it because it's considered marital assets. But if the woman or the other spouse that's the victim, they just get told, oh, well, we can't do nothing because it's marital property.
And that's with stalking and harassment too. It blows my mind. There is if you guys have not watched it, I highly recommend anyone who has, this is something you need to let your preteen through, I'd say beginning at preteen watch. Fitz News had done it. I know there's going to be some issues with one of the people that were on it, but they had an officer that teaches at the academy in Columbia. It was the most phenomenal YouTube video, and he talked about the laws about harassment and stalking, and how Mica was failed, and he gave very, very specifics about the law. He gave specifics about what you need to keep track of. He gave specifics about how you need to communicate with police officers so that it is an arrestable thing. But the biggest thing is that just blows my mind is that harassment and stalking really doesn't apply if you're married. So basically, if you're married, your spouse has a right to do those things. No,
right.
Just because you're married, you do not lose human rights. And I know that's a hard thing for people in the South. I've lived South my whole life, to grasp, because it is very much a biblical driven family structure, and and wives should be submissive and that kind of thing, and I get the rational level of that, but this it's just not okay. And so it is scary for some of these people, because and I'm going to say, it's scary for some of these lawmakers. I mean, there's a reason why there's been a year wait. The rationale behind it, and honestly, I don't think there should be a year wait for anything. I don't even think it should take grounds. I think it's unhealthy.
It's too expensive. It's unhealthy.
And
But
it
there,
gives the user the upper hand. I mean, I think if this law was in place or there was more awareness and stuff, people like Tracy could still be here. And because I mean, everything was taken from her, that I know of, and everything was weaponized against her, and all because she had to wait. And I mean, she shouldn't have had to wait that long. She should have been able to get the divorce, get the restraining order, and leave with her kids and be safe. She should be here. Mica should be here. So many more victims should be here.
yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, so we keep saying a year, and now I know for years. So initially I started in 2004. Now, and of course, because of this year and financial reasons, because I was a stay-at-home mom. Now I would work, here and there part-time, and it would be like, I don't know, $9 an hour, because you got to think back then, and that wasn't much then. I'm not bragging about it, but I didn't finish my degree, and that's, I'm not blaming anybody for that. I didn't finish my degree. I did have, I worked in the medical field, but when you're not clinical, just to be honest with you, the pay's not that great unless you're like an upper management or something. So anyway, you're talking about like $9 an hour or less in some cases, and part-time. So it wasn't enough to survive off of, certainly. Now, I did have my parents, but a lot of people do not. But because I stayed with my parents, they looked at my dad's income, which I don't think this is right, but we can all agree to disagree, but not that my dad didn't. He was happy to help, but it was not his responsibility. So I'm going to say this. In most cases, we say a year, and I'm in South Carolina. I've said that, but just in case anybody didn't hear me, I live in South Carolina, so this was South Carolina. It actually takes, when it's all said and done, it's over a year. But the attorney fees are outrageous. If I had not had my parents' help, I wouldn't even be able to afford an attorney. But I made too much, which I don't know what too much is, but I didn't make hardly anything, but it was too much to get a court-appointed attorney. Because I tried that, denied. So had to come up with, my parents had to come up with money. And then I tried to get assistance, and they said no, because you live, so my dad was head of household, right? My parents, he was head of household, so they based it off of his income. 6 months. Now I did get the temporary hearing for separate maintenance and support. For 6 months, he didn't pay a dime. Had to go back to court. So 6 months in arrearage. Okay, that's what happens a lot of times. And I think it was the first time, because I think we went back and forth about 3 times. And more than that, but I'm talking about with attorneys. All said and done, I had 3 attorneys before I was divorced, okay? And that being said, the money was just ridiculous, the amount of money back then, okay? This is before they required this mediation, which from my understanding, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, it's like $200 an hour. Who has that? And you're right, it goes back and forth, because nobody's gonna, usually it's not a good situation. And so this person is not going to agree. So that's what you're trying to do. You're mediating, but nobody's happy. And so it can just go on until you rack up an astronomical amount of money that you don't have. But anyway, that being said, it's typically over a year. I think it was about a year and 6 months for me. But I want to tell y'all, and I'm not, names are not, that's not necessary, but you'll get the point. This is awful, and this happened. I know it happened because I was there. Not to me, friend of mine. divorce. They did the 1 year, and it was over a year too. It was also over a year. I will say Greenville County, and the excuse has always been, we're just so backed up. We're just so backed up. Okay. You never get emergency hearings, by the way, unless, I don't know, you're an extremely, I don't want to say lucky because it's not luck, but rarely are those granted. So I don't even know why they even offer them, because rarely do they get granted. I mean, they do need to offer them, but rarely is it granted. Okay. So this woman, she went through the year, goes and stands before a judge. And if you're like me and from South Carolina, and I don't know what they do in other states, we're going to talk about South Carolina. Excuse my voice, but I'm trying. So stood before the judge, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't know exactly how they ask, but you stand up there and you speak, whatever, the attorneys speak, and then they ask you, and I think they say, do you want this divorce or something like that? The judge will ask you, and I don't remember how they ask it, but that's basically what they ask. Do you want a divorce? She said, yes. He said, no. Do y'all want to know what happened? Anybody want to guess? That judge ordered them to, he didn't grant the divorce. So they had to wait another year. And I'm not kidding. So I went to court with her as her witness that they had been separated, not together, not, at all in that year period. And when I tell you, he looked at me like he wanted to get rid of, you know what I'm saying? And her. Oh, yeah. And he stormed out of that. Now, they did grant it then, but you're talking about probably 2.5 years of this nonsense because he wanted to stay married. I've never heard of that, but that did actually happen. So that was terrible. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine?
Yeah, and I mean that's
money. You know what I mean? And 2.5 years of board. You know what?
It's like they drag you in and out so much of the court, and to where they just absolutely drain you, and then even though you have to wait that year to get a divorce, it doesn't mean that once that year's up, you're still going to get that divorce.
Right.
I mean,
and that's why it's so critical that with narcissists who are inflicting emotional abuse, they feed off of winning. And so that is why this is so critical, because if you can pull the Band-Aid off of their control, it's going to stop the escalation. Because the simple fact of giving them a year to be able to utilize the courts and file motions and do all this kind of stuff, they are literally getting off on it. And it's just making them do more and more and more and more.
Right.
The other big thing is that right now, that's why it was so important to get this hearing. Before this hearing, there's a huge push for standard 50-50 custody in South Carolina. They just had a hearing, and that is going to pass. It's going to pass eventually. And that's one thing I've been trying to put everywhere and talk to lawmakers, is that cannot pass before coercive control is deemed abuse in South Carolina, because putting children in that much time with a manipulative parent that is using them to retaliate against the parent that left to leave an abusive situation is child abuse. And so they cannot pass that before they label this, because let me explain what happens at the beginning. So you go hire an attorney, okay? They file the papers of basically, we've been together this long. This is when we were married. These are the things that are going on. Am I filing for grounds? Am I not? They send it. It gets served to the person. They get 30 days to respond, and they literally go, number one, this is what happened, or they concur, or they whatever, every single piece. And then a temporary hearing is set. The temporary hearing's purpose is because you got to wait a year, is to determine, does somebody need financial assistance, what's going to happen with custody, and what's going to happen with visitation. So a hearing gets scheduled. And what happens is both parties basically write up affidavits. You write up an affidavit, you have other people write an affidavit for you. Both parties walk in with 3 copies. Okay? You walk into court with 3 copies. You hand the other person a copy, they hand you a copy, and each person hands the judge a copy. And everybody sits there and they quietly read. Nothing is argued. The judge may have a couple questions, and then the judge decides. He decides, does anybody need any alimony? Does anybody need, who is going to get, is it going to be 50-50 custody? Is it on a temporary basis? Is it 50-50 custody? Is it joint custody with one person having primary physical custody, which means that ultimately they have to discuss everything with a child, but if you don't agree, that person with primary physical custody gets final decision making. But guess what? That person, the other spouse, can drag them into court over every single little thing, and cause more legal bills if they don't agree with what the deciding parent decides. And it could just, and trust me, they will do that just to drag you in and drain your money. So number one, the 50-50 custody mandate, they want that at that meeting, they want that judge to say as a standard, 50-50 custody, the child will be in this home for 50% of the time and this home 50% of the time. In my opinion, I don't think that can happen until they deem coercive control abuse, because there's a huge whole separate section of advocates that are concerned about parent alienation. And this law combats that, because parent alienation is coercive control. Anyone that is alienating children from parents or using children to retaliate, it is a form of coercive control. So this actually is going to help men and women, because in that hearing, if that judge, initial hearing at the beginning, if they see that there is coercive control behavior, and it now is a law that is considered abuse, then that judge can alter initially on a temporary basis right out the gate before anything is really dug into. And you don't put all this evidence with your packets. You just put, you make and put a couple things, especially if the abuser wants to try to say you're abusing your child or something like that. They may put something in there, try to say that you are or whatever. But that would give judges the authority to be able to say, okay, I know what I'm dealing with. And so for the protection of the child, we're not going to take them away from the other person, but we're not going to sit here and give them 50% of the time so that they can emotionally abuse this child with manipulation until they can prove that they are capable of emotionally being a parent the way that they need to be. Some people are not even necessarily ongoing narcissist people. Some people just cannot handle a divorce process and they act out of their character because they are just so hurt and angry. This will give them the authority to say, okay, until you can get yourself together and put your child's needs first, although we want children to have equal time with their parents, we can't be exposing the child to that for that long periods of time until you can get it together.
Yeah, I agree. Need 702 to pass before the 50-50, because I mean that is one way that abusers do, is they weaponize the children against the parents. And if someone can show that they have that pattern of behavior, hold on, y'all. I'm sorry, y'all. I had to get me something to drink. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hmm. But yeah, because I mean, there's definitely got to be a an exception to the 50-50 for sure. Yes, I will be uploading this on YT, so everyone that wasn't able to watch it will be able to go over there and watch the full video. And thank you.
Yeah, whoever didn't see it, it was very powerful. There were 2 survivors that spoke, and their stories were extremely powerful. There was also an advocacy agency that spoke that had dealt with Mica personally. It was very impactful.
Well,
Yes, and Abigail and Anna did a fabulous job. I'm so proud of them for stepping up and speaking out for their sister.
Yes, they did a great job.
Well, we get to move to the next phase. If you want to explain that a little bit more, Justice for Mica, about what the next steps are going to be now since they agreed to this law, what we face now.
Well, I can say that based on everything about when they spoke, the committee, I definitely feel like the educating that we've been doing and that survivors have been doing over the last 3 weeks has really opened their eyes. I could sense in how they were speaking that they are on board. And the very last statement, I can't quote what they said, but the way they said it, the way I interpreted it is that there's some work here to do. We're going to reach out to some of the people that had, some concerns on some wording. And to me, it sounded like they want to get this done. Because again, the reality is that mid-June this dies and it has to start all over again with possibly it is going to be a whole new mix of lawmakers. So right now, honestly, my focus has been get this hearing and let's make sure as many they see how important this is to the citizens of South Carolina, to make sure. This was such a short notice, y'all. This hearing was not supposed to happen. This was going to stall. This was going to stall. So even advocacy groups, and there's a woman who is a big DV advocate in the Charleston area, didn't even know last night that it was happening. So I've really kind of just been focusing on making sure agencies knew it was going on, try to get them there, try to get just this loud. So to need to look into kind of what the steps are, but it's it's got to go to the House they have to vote, the Senate has to vote. Basically, the subcommittee is going to work on the dotting the I's and crossing the T's before it's presented for a vote in the Senate, basically. We have a month. If they really want to do this, I think there's absolutely no reason why they can't. I do think we have the elections on our side, meaning elections are in November, and it's going to be a lot to have to explain that you let this bill die when all of them are trying to get elected. And I think we've shown them that we have a pretty loud voice that stretches nationwide. So I think maybe some of the ones that may not be gung-ho on why does this happen to happen right real now, they haven't educated themselves on how serious this is. I think that might help. I think that may be what stirs them to get this handled. So I think what they're doing now is they're going to work on getting the verbiage of the law the way it needs to be able to stand up in a court of law, to be able to give law enforcement specific guidelines on what constitute things, what pattern of abuse means, where that line is, to make sure that when survivors reach out for help, that there's no loopholes that are going to stop that from happening, which I do believe needs to happen. And once that happens, it'll go up for a vote in the Senate, and then it moves over to the House. Then the House will vote, and then the governor signs. So it's so important, y'all. It is so important that we keep pressure on this. Like, there's little things you can do every day. Any graphic that I have on my page, you're welcome to use. If you don't know how to get it without having like part of the post on it or whatever, I'll be happy to help y'all. Fully engaging in posts, reposting, all of those things help so much. There are other bills that are trying to get passed by the end of session 2, which is mid-May, and they're going to be, they're going to be begging too. So we've got to keep the pressure on. We can't make them think that we're tired and they can get away with just letting this go.
We've gotten this far for a reason, for sure.
Right. So please keep, like, even if you can commit to, even searching the terms. When you search a term like Mica's Law, SCB.702, coercive control, every time you search that, that makes TikTok say, oh, these people are interested in this. And so what they do is they push content out that's about those things even farther. So there is a whole lot of people in South Carolina still that do not know that this happened today. Because it's literally been 2 weeks is all that this newly written bill has been talked about, 2-3 weeks. So there's going to be more people talking about it. And we just got to, it's a lot. I know posting seems like it's just a post, but there's a lot. Like, even in comment sections, y'all, if you see people that are, there's going to be these people that are just nasty. But if you see people that have genuine questions about how something can work, there were, like, example yesterday, people were saying, I think they need to change the divorce law first this year, wait. And so what did I do? I dropped the graphic that it includes grounds for divorce, it includes protective orders, those type of things. They weren't aware that it does. So then I could see in their response comment, they were like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what we need. So answering questions from people in comment sections, just supporting anyone posting about this at all. We need to show them that we will not stop fighting for this, and reminding them that this needs to happen now, not later.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead, Alex.
No, just going to say to that, and you saw it because I think I tagged you in it, or you saw it, or I sent it to you. But a local, so I'm in the upstate, and it was, I think, a couple days ago now, and it was posted. It was about what happened today, and there was an article about Mica included with it. And so, I saw it and I'm like, oh, because y'all just wouldn't believe, I'm in the upstate, and, I spend a lot of time in Myrtle Beach, but I'm in the upstate. That's where I live. You would not believe that there's a lot of people in the upstate that have never heard of Mica. Never. And then they don't even know what coercive control is, because now I get that part, because I didn't know what that was until I read it and then educated myself and read more and researched it. But to my point, there was a local news channel that posted about SC7 or S702, what the hearing today. And then it had an article about Mica. Well, so I'm like, oh, this is great. And so I get on there and I start reading comments, and I was mad. I was mad. And then I thought, you know what? I don't think these people even read the article. Because if they had, if they take, and you know what? I will say this. I think all of us are probably guilty of that at some point. Maybe not with this particular, obviously, because it means something to us. But if you don't know the face, if you don't know, and it's a story, and maybe you're on your lunch break or taking just you're scrolling and you see something and you comment. And you can tell by the comment, if you read the article, well, this person didn't read, because they might say something like, well, I hope they put this person in jail, or something. Well, that person already is in jail. Or I'm just giving you an example. Okay. And so there were these comments. They were very derogatory. A lot of them were from men, just being honest. And then there were a few from women. So I didn't, it wasn't ugly. In fact, I would post it here for everybody to read it. It wasn't ugly, but it was to the point. I said, I'm going to take the time. It was several paragraphs. And I said, and I basically said, did you read the article? Because if you had, I don't think you would be saying these things, these derogatory comments. And so just, taking the time to read the article is very important. And then they would have seen that you don't have to wait a year. And I said in my comment, this isn't just for women. This helps men and women. And I said, monsters are male and female. I mean, they come in both. It's not like they're all men. I've known some pretty awful women that have done some pretty awful things. So it's not, but that's the mindset. See, and they didn't read the article, and they didn't know any of this stuff. And they were just really just commenting. And then it was like somebody would see their comment and just kind of, how it happens. But you're right. You're absolutely right. It's important to, if people have questions, to say, if you have any questions, if you want to know more, even, say you can go here, or, you can message me or whatever. But that's what a lot of it is they don't even read it. And then they're just like, oh, this is going to hurt men. Oh, this is another way to bamboozle. They said another word, but I'll use the word bamboozle men, or da-da-da. And I'm like, no. So, and that's the only one where I was assertive. I was very assertive, but it got the point across, and I didn't have to name drop or attack or anything. But I was like, let's just, read it. But anyway, I was actually very, I was very, very happy with what I heard today. Again, in the beginning, the girls, ladies, they did great. Everybody did great. And I know that took a lot. The victims, when they spoke, I was in tears. And that was very brave of them. And I know it was hard. But you know what? I could tell that these people listened. I felt so good. And I was like, oh, wow. It went even better than I'd hoped for and prayed for.
Yes.
So that's all I wanted to say. I was like, that's why I was just, when I first came on, I was still emotional. I was still crying. But it was because God, it was just good. It was better than anticipated. So way to go, everybody. And thank you all so much that have just given this your all, because it's a lot. It's a lot. But now you see all of this. It's so worth it, because look at where things are at now.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes.
And that's all I had to say. Thank
we
you.
all need to keep emailing. Right now it's currently in subcommittee. So this is the time, that list, and I'll post again today. It's, I don't know, maybe 5. Well, there was 5 of them, right? 5 or 6. I don't remember how many, maybe a little bit more. This is the time now we send emails. We thank them for having a productive hearing and listening and hearing, and offer our support in any way we can. But this is the time we send even more emails now, showing our support. And so, this is the time, y'all. There's so many different aspects of justice for Mica. And this is a huge one, because I think it's pretty obvious that Micah was standing up. I think especially the ones that have really dug deep and done a lot of research, she knew the risk and she still chose to stand up.
Absolutely.
Knowing what could happen to her. And
she was ready to fight. I mean,
yes.
you could definitely see that she was ready to fight.
Yes. And if somebody happens to be watching this that's not in support of this, one other thing I just want to mention about, talking to people in comments and stuff is that, the South is very kind of like the Bible Belt, and all of y'all know that I have a lot of faith, and my faith is relationships, is not a denomination, it's a relationship with God. But in the South there is a very conservative belief in, wives should be submissive to their husbands. Okay. So there's kind of a line to that a little bit. And I think the key in so I think some are who live that lifestyle or have that belief, where the man is the man of the house and they make the decisions or they handle the money and all that kind of stuff. I think the key, and I think they may be concerned that how their specific families are living things out, that this could become a criminal thing. No. The key word here is consent. If you are in a marriage where it's your biblical belief that your husband is the head of the household and that he handles the finances, whether we believe that is healthy or not, if that is your household, and that the husband works and the wife chooses to be the caretaker of the home, and she lets the husband make the major decisions, and it's a healthy environment for the children, there is nothing that this law is going to do to stop that. The key to this is consent. Where it stops is, where it changes is if one of the partners either doesn't agree to that or they no longer agree to that. You cannot use control. You cannot use retaliation. You cannot use emotional abuse. You cannot use degrading. You cannot cut off finances. You cannot punish them in any way because they're making a choice that they no longer want to live in that manner. And if you don't like that, the choice is you leave the marriage. You do not invoke coercive control that does not have consent and abuse your partner because they do not agree with that lifestyle or don't agree with it any longer. So it's not going to put these people in jail where their family structure agrees, whether we believe that, a man should be making all the money and the women stay home and they don't make any decisions. If them as couples are making that decision and it's a healthy environment for the children, then people should be able to live their lives the way they want to. And this law is not going to change that.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, I mean, you've said it so well and explained it so well, but that's a lot of it is people have this misconception. And again, I said it earlier in the comments and it may not have made sense because you can only say so much, but like when you hear coercive control, you might know what coercion means, but coercive control by itself is not really clear. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, so much so that there is going to be training, and that absolutely there has to be training for these law enforcement officers. But no, nobody is trying to infringe on a family's beliefs. And, even if somebody's like, God, her husband's bossy and he's controlling, if that's what they are okay with, and there's a lot of people, I might consider that old school, and I am a believer, but I'm not one of these. Like my husband, he essentially, yes, he is the breadwinner for our home. However, we are like it's a partnership, and it's not, and I would say, yes, I mean, because I'm a believer, like he's the spiritual leader, but spiritual leader for me does not mean boss, control freak. Because I'm going to tell you one thing, this girl doesn't, nobody bosses me around like that. I wouldn't be in that situation. And so it's not that, but now some people, they like that and they want that, and That's how their household functions. So no, you're right. Nobody's trying to infringe on how people, and like you said, I mean, when somebody comes forward and presents as this is what's going on, then you're right. So, but I think a lot of this is just misunderstood, or it's been, it really, there's a lot of people that don't even know what coercive control is because it hasn't reached everybody,
I mean, for a very long time, we didn't have a name for it, so if we were put in that situation, we didn't have a name or, anything to say what it was. I mean, it was just, so now, I mean, it's still kind of, I mean, it's not a new thing that's been going on. It's something that's been going on for way too long, but now we have an actual name. So whenever we do go into court or anything like that, and that's why it's so important to share and, get the word out, even if you can't post or whatever. I mean, sharing a post that someone makes about coercive control or something, I mean, that puts new eyes on it, and that helps more people to understand exactly what it is and know the name of that type of abuse. And it also helps people to understand, because I mean, if it's something that you're sharing, people will look at it and say, okay, well, this is something that this person cares about, they shared it. So, they start reading it and they start understanding it more. And I think that's a lot of this, I mean, that helps so much. It's just, I mean, just sharing, and that helps people to understand, that helps get the word out, that helps people to, realize and even know the signs. And, they might have a friend or something that's going through it, but they don't even know what you call it, or, or what to do, to help. So.
Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, there's so many different ways. Like, some of us are not comfortable speaking. I get it. Some of us, prefer, there's all types of ways to help. And I'll be the first one to tell y'all with TikTok, like, I love everything that y'all do. I've just got to sit down and figure it out, because I haven't, because I'm one of these, like, the book of faces, whatever you want to, that's what I'm more used to because it's been around, And so I didn't have this platform until late 2024, and really didn't even start using it until 2025. And so, but there's all kinds of ways to, to help, and emailing people. I'm not the best. Okay, I can talk. I can speak, but like putting things into words sometimes, like an email, for an example, I'm not good with that. So I think there's others, definitely y'all are. And so we can use those templates, and then you can kind of, you add to it, take away, whatever you want to do, so that it doesn't, if you're worried about it sounding like, oh, I've read this before, you can tweak it however you want to, but I'm not good. So I will definitely, by all means, take all the help I can get with like graphics and templates, because I can talk and I can explain it that way. But I'm one of these, I'm old school. I'm 47, but I shouldn't use that word. I do not like texting. I do not like Messenger, even though I use it. I've had to, because I have a 23-year-old and, some younger friends, and that's what they use texting, and they'll write a book. But I'd rather just pick up the phone and talk and be done with it. My idea of texting is I'm on my way, or what time, short communication. But some of us struggle with that, and that's okay, because that's what templates are for. And we're not using each other, but we're using each other in a sense, in a good way, because all of us have gifts and strengths. And if you don't feel comfortable, but you want to be involved, there are people here that are great with different things, and you put all that together, and, we're still here 2 years later. And those that are new or whatever, hey, you're just as important as people that have been here the 2 years, almost 2 years.
And you're right on time. It's perfect
It's
timing.
perfect timing. And like I said, I know you're here because it means something to you because you've been affected or you know somebody that has been. But like I said, I'm not good with, I share things on this platform on TikTok, but I've got to sit down and learn and I've
So
just got to make the time to
Veronica,
do that.
so maybe Veronica and I could do a live to show like some basic things. Number one, I have people that don't know how to get the graphics that I make that I say can be used to actually get it off of the post or to be able to use it, or even just people who don't post. When you're a creator on TikTok, you forget that everybody on here is not a creator. Some people just come to participate in the content and have never posted. So if people, maybe we put a post out and ask if that's something people are interested in, or we could just do it and just give people a heads up and just kind of show the basics of, the basics are take a graphic and just literally upload it and write some text on it and press post. Um, and if there's people that are wanting specific things, maybe we make a post and allow people to comment on some of the things that they don't know how to do, they'd like to learn or whatever. And maybe we could show people how to um, make some posts if there are people that are interested in posting.
Oh, I'm definitely
Absolutely.
interested. That would be great. Cause like I said, I'm hands on. So like somebody talking to me, but like I have to see it and do it. You know what I mean? But like, no, I haven't seen that. So if you're just telling me do this, like you've lost me because I've got ADHD. So I'm like, okay. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. And thank you for bringing that up. And I know I'm interested and I'm sure there's many others because that's where some of us are just like, well, I would love to do this, but I don't know how to do this. So I need to learn. And right now it's quiet, but when my little one gets out of school, then I can't even really talk until like he goes to bed. And sometimes that's like way later because the husband and I want to spend some time together. And then it's like, you might see me message you at midnight. You might not see it till the next day, but that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of us that, are busy but we have downtime and that would be perfect.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's all kinds of ways to help. And there are a lot of people that I know don't have a problem going up to somebody in person and saying the things, they're not uncomfortable meeting with some of these people or calling them. They might know them. Maybe they're friends with them on Facebook. I'm just saying like,
Yeah, and that's another thing too with sharing and posting is, you don't know each time a post is shared or it gets to new eyes and new people and you never know who could be on that friends list or whose algorithm that they may be on and that post end up being in their eyesight to where, hey, or they want to know more, they could understand it more, or they could say, hey, you know what, I could help with this. They got all the tools that I need right here to do it. So
Yeah.
you just
Yeah. Because
never know, and that's why it's so
this is the time
crucial.
that we need people more than ever, because
Mm-hmm.
the reality is that in June, when certain individuals get handcuffed and put behind bars, by January we're going to lose a lot of supporters that are going to feel like justice has been served. Maybe they haven't really looked into the in-depthness of all of this, and so we're going to lose some momentum with this. And so I hope everybody, as successful as today was, and it was a huge success, and that is
It
because of
was.
yes,
everybody's
yes,
hard work.
amen. Amen.
We need to look at this time as between now and mid-May. We've got to we got to bring more people in. We need more people supporting and helping us. Keep making those calls, keep making those emails. If you are in a women's group or a book club or those kind of things, or you have people that you feel like this they would be passionate about this too, make sure you're sharing with them. Give them some of the creators' names who are posting about this, and give them a list of some of the people and say, we really, we really need some emails sent to subcommittee right now. And these are some of the creators that we're kind of doing this step by step. And right now, this is what we need. And we could definitely use some help. And then you go tell if you could tell, if you have friends, we need to, this is the moment between now and May that we need more support than ever. Because if this dies, we have too much against us that could go wrong before January. A lot could happen.
And the more that they see that are not just South Carolina sending these emails and stepping up, the more that they see outside of South Carolina as well, they're gonna take notice of that, and they're gonna think, okay, well, it's just not Myrtle Beach or Columbia or whatever in South Carolina watching. Like, literally, the whole nation is watching, and they are waiting for us to do the right thing, so that way they could build on that and make it nationwide. And it kind of makes them the hero at the end of the day. And who don't want that kind of so
right. And if you have a story and you're from another state, you don't have to be from South Carolina. You don't have to give all, things that you may not want to share. But if you want to share enough that you feel like matters, just because you're not from South Carolina doesn't mean that you can't email them and tell them
right.
what you experienced and what it did to your life, and how was it after leaving, and what you needed, what kind of support you needed, because ultimately we're all humans. It doesn't matter what state we're in. Anyone who's experienced coercive control, those stories matter.
Yes.
And it just shows that we have national support, and that's huge, especially when we're looking at elections coming up.
Right. And I want to take a moment and thank Mr. Goldfinch I know he couldn't stay very long in there, but what he said and how he said it, I think was perfect. And it gives me a lot of hope that with what we're doing, we got his attention. At the very least, we got his attention, and he is on board with us. And he's actually sat down with the sisters and discussed and got more of an understanding, and what Mica went through. And like you said, he was embarrassed that Mica could not get the help that she needed. He said he was embarrassed for his state, and I think that there speaks volumes.
Right. Because these lawmakers need to remember that 1 in 3, I'm just using women. I know that men are 1 in 3 women experience domestic violence. It is definitely a precursor. That is not, those statistics though, y'all, do not include coercive control. So we know that in almost all cases of physical abuse, there is coercive control involved. So that's not even including the amount of people. So if they are not abusive to their spouses, and their children may not possibly be in a situation, the odds are that their grandchildren are going to be. And just because if you feel like that you are wealthy and that you have power and connections, are you sure that you have enough control over somebody who doesn't have more? What if they has more control than you? And what if they need to leave that relationship? What's going to happen to them? Because this is not just ginger. This help that are wealthy. It's wealthiest and who has the most power. So it will their families too. It may not have yet, and then they have a lot of control and a lot of but are you really? I mean, when in the history have we ever been able to control who our children really?
Right.
Their children or their grandchildren this one day too.
Absolutely. So this is going to help not only South Carolina, it's going to help the nation.
Good job,
it's going to help the future.
Thank y'all for everybody.
Yes,
I appreciate y'all a lot.
For sharing and commenting, liking, and everything. I mean, it helps, and it helps get it further for more people to see and have awareness. And South Carolina, they know that all eyes are on them right now. So we got to keep
Absolutely. Absolutely, girl.
pushing though. And like justice for Mica is coming. I mean, the fact that in such a short amount of time that we found out
I think I'm
about
going to
this
step
and
down.
support.
Alrighty, girl. Thank you so much for everything.
Yes, thank you. Thank you,
Everything.
Justice for Mica.
It's easier if y'all message me on the book face because I get a bubble pop up. I have the same name over there because messages on TikTok are just wild, and every time I share a video, it puts it at the top. So, if you need help, or if you need me and I'm not responding, just message me on Bookface. Thank you guys, and I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all's day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a good night. Have a good morning.
Thank you, Henry.
You're welcome. Veronica, thank you. I appreciate all you guys do.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Henry.
much for your
Thank you, and God bless you, Julie.
God bless you too.
Thank you. God
Thank you
bless
so
you.
much.
I'm probably gonna end this live too now. So
Sounds good.
short
Well,
week.
like I said, everything was just today was it was so good. You know, I'm so proud of everyone that spoke, and it just was. I mean, it was way better than and that's just I'm still like I'm gonna get off the phone and cry. But I mean, it was when listening to that, I don't think there was probably a dry eye.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think what we were able to make happen today is just thank you, God. I mean,
Absolutely.
So, but I'm gonna hop off of here, and if anyone missed any part of it, give me some time, and I will have it on my YT, and that way you can watch it in full or watch it when you can. So, but I'll say my famous saying I ain't said in a while. So if today's your birthday, happy birthday. I'll talk to y'all soon.
Sounds good. Everybody have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye, bye, bye.